All set?
Yeah, good to go. Thanks.
Okay. So just to start off, who are you and what do you do?
My name's Christopher Cantwell, and I'm the host of a live, open phones, uncensored right-wing talk show called The Radical Agenda.
And why are you here?
I am here to unite the right and to protest the removal of a monument in what was once called Lee Park before the communists got to it. Now they're calling it Emancipation Park, but I'm here to protest the removal of that statue.
But also there's a bigger agenda to unite various factions within the far right.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, there's always several irons in the fire whenever you want to accomplish something of value, right?
Can you speak more to that? Like, why is that important?
Well, we have a problem in this country that the left seems to have it in their heads that they can have their complete unadulterated way with the nation, and that what they seem to be intent on doing is destroying it. And if these various factions of the right, as you put it, do not unite and work against them, then the left will win and will destroy our country, and there will be nothing left to defend.
What have they been bickering over?
What have they been bickering over? The various factions of the right?
Yeah.
Racism would probably be the most obvious one. A bunch of people trying to virtue signal and act like communist egalitarians, pretending that all men are in fact equal, and that, even more ridiculously, women are equal to men.
What does virtue signaling mean?
Virtue signaling? Trying to make a fashionable moral statement with no substance.
I think you need to get something a little more specific.
So for example, it is taken for granted in this country that racism is a bad thing, and racism now means acknowledging differences between racial groups. And so, if you suggest that there is a difference between racial groups, people will trip over themselves to see who can be the first and loudest to say how terrible you are, just for telling the truth. And so, this is what I mean by virtue signaling is doing things for no other purpose than to make people think that you're virtuous.
So you think that, no one actually believes in egalitarianism?
I don't believe that anyone with an IQ over 85 could honestly believe that. The idea that we are all the same is contradicted by the very fact that the same people want diversity. How can you have diversity and equality in the same sentence? It's obnoxious. It's a contradiction of terms.
Seems like a lot of work to get riled up over just something that's obnoxious.
Well, if it was just a matter of being obnoxious in a sense where people were made to be responsible for the cost of their own failures, then that would be one thing. The problem is that they're being obnoxious with the levels of the United States federal government, which happens to have the most powerful military in the history of mankind at its disposal, along with the largest economy. So when you're obnoxious and idiotic with something that powerful, yeah, I get a little worried.
Well, I don't understand. What do you see as the possible outcome of that?
What I see as the possible outcome of that is everything that we're dealing with today. It's getting to a point where you cannot tell the truth without risking imprisonment, assault, ostracization, loss of your job, etc. You pardon me. Ingrid, can you get this to Ingrid, please? She's probably over there. We have these foreign policy problems. I mean, we've been at war for more than a decade and a half now. It doesn't seem like the greatest idea when you have stupid people doing stupid things with a military. Catastrophic outcomes happen.
So you were a libertarian.
I still am. I know a lot of people will take issue with me saying that, but foundationally, I believe that everybody should be able to exercise complete control over their own person and property. And I am simply dealing with the reality that that's not the world that I live in. We have a government. The government interferes with people's lives, and it interferes with the economic and genetic incentives of our society in such a fashion that it's making people dumber and less capable and more dangerous.
You're a libertarian, but you also identify as a fascist?
I am a libertarian. I want to live in a libertarian society, and I cannot do that while the left controls the government. So I am willing to do whatever is necessary to stop them.
So the plan is take over the government, enact fascism. Step two.
Plan is a strong word. I'd say that I'd be perfectly happy to see New Hampshire, for example, secede from the Union. Okay, so maybe some people who are not necessarily sympathetic to me just get outside the boot of the United States federal government, and we live that way, for example. There's any number of options that I'm willing to consider, but I'm saying that those of us the problem with a lot of libertarians I think, is that they trying to adopt libertarianism as a lifestyle choice under the regime of modernity, and that is impossible. Libertarianism is a philosophical way that the world, a way of organizing society that I believe would be more just, moral, and virtuous, and peaceful and prosperous. The environment that we live in today is run by elements with very communist leanings, and that is as far from libertarianism as it can get. And so, I want the government to act in such a fashion as to move us towards that way of life.
After getting rid of all the minorities.
Well, the minorities are okay. I'm not particularly attached personally to getting rid of all of the minorities. I actually,
like 50%.
Well, put it this way: the radical agenda is called the radical agenda because I had a guest on a show by the name of Walter Williams, who's a black economist who I respect deeply. Okay, and I introduced him. The show used to be called Some Garbage Podcast, and I rebranded the show because I felt stupid introducing this guy who I held in very high esteem onto a show by that name, and so I rebranded it the radical agenda. The race factor is a side effect of the larger problem that I want to live in a society where I can carry a firearm to defend myself and I'm not taxed through the nose to pay for other people's failures. The Democratic Party has been opening up the floodgates of immigration and forbidding discrimination and subsidizing the breeding of non-whites because they on average have lower IQs and will vote for Democrat policies because they're stupid. And so I need to deal with that problem, and there is no other way for me to deal with it than to recognize the demographics.
Do you feel energized by President Trump's election?
Depending on the day. I was not feeling very energized when he bombed Syria. I'm not feeling very energized about what's going on with healthcare, but I'm very glad that I don't have to die in a war against the Clinton administration.
What about in terms of making progress towards your political goals?
I believe that he is a good bandage to slow the bleeding.
Can you explain why?
Well, so Donald Trump is not doing anything that I find particularly useful, frankly. But it is the lesser of the evils. He is preventing Hillary Clinton from holding that office. He is energizing other people. He's making people realize how desperate and dire our circumstances are, and so those are all very helpful. But I think it's funny that so many people try to act as though Donald Trump has caused this resurgence of white nationalism or something like that. I think it's foundationally ridiculous, frankly, because I watched that kike bastard knock up his daughter. Okay, and so I don't think it's particularly fair to
Not
Donald Trump. Of course, Jared Kushner, I'm sorry. Not everybody knows the kike bastard I'm referring to if they haven't picked up a fucking newspaper in a year. But, I don't think that Donald Trump is, himself creating a resurgence of white nationalism. People are saying, I care about my country. And a bunch of people decided to say, well, what really defines our country anyway? And what I think a lot of people are coming to realize as they start thinking about what a nation is, they're realizing that this idea of a propositional nation is foundationally ridiculous. We are not empty vessels full of abstract principles. That is not how people organize their lives. There is a biological component to people's inclinations and aptitudes and the things that they lean towards. And so when you start realizing that everything that we value in Western society is essentially white patriarchal values, then yeah, you start saying, hey, let's have a bunch of white men run things because history teaches me that it tends to go better that way.
Can you explain what you meant? That was like a little vague, like how biology plays a role in your political inclinations.
Well, the easiest example of this is IQ, okay? So on average, blacks in the United States have an IQ, a standard deviation lower than do whites. Now, this is not a reliable way of judging individuals, as I mentioned before. Walter Williams, Thomas Sowell, everybody comes up with the same two black guys every time you look for a smart one. But generally speaking, the reason that blacks are filling up our prisons is because they have lower IQs and higher testosterone. They're more prone to aggression and are not able to think things through the same way white people are, and so they make bad decisions, and shockingly enough, they wind up dead and in prison. So that is a biological factor in the plight of the poor downtrodden black man that I'm no longer sympathetic to. And that's just one of them. Women, I don't think ever should have been given the right to vote, and that's not because I don't like women. I hold women in very high regard. I just don't think that they're particularly suited to politics because the biological nature of a woman is to fall for the kind of scams that bring us the welfare state. These emotional arguments that have nothing to do with the fact of the matter. They're not particularly suited to economics or warfare, and so these are primarily what the state does. So the biological nature of women, their hormones and whatnot, and their intellect is geared towards nurturing and raising a family and stuff like that, and that's important, and it's a good thing, and I love women for that. But they're not suited to statecraft because of the biological nature of what they are, and so I think they should be excluded from the process. Okay, so those are two of the examples. But generally speaking, ideas are not so much spread through exchange of words as they are spread through exchange of bodily fluids. Civilizations and ways of life continue on so long as the people who live them live and breed. And if they stop breeding and if they stop living, then their way of life will cease to be as well.
You have a criminal record. Is that a sign of low IQ?
It is not a sign of low IQ. It's a sign of extraordinarily poor decision-making. You could say that. I ran with a bad crowd. I sort of grew up, if you will, a poverty in the shadow of great wealth for a period of time. I ran with a bad crowd. I made a bunch of bad decisions, and it took a little while and a few months in a can to figure out that was not a way to be.
Why would that make you different from anyone else?
Why would what?
Why would anyone else with a criminal record not have the same mistakes that should be forgiven?
So my mistakes were relatively minor, frankly, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, they're severe in comparison to the average person, but in the realm of the criminal justice system, my mistakes were relatively minor. And I'm glad that, I never, killed anybody or raped anybody or committed any kind of really heinous armed robbery or whatever that landed me in prison for a very long time. I have some misdemeanor convictions, and they're largely related to my vices, which I've since gotten away from. Whereas in a case of other people where they go out and they cause more catastrophic harm and whatnot, I mean, they're not thinking about the future in the same way. So I've made some poor decisions, and as I said, I mean, these things are not reliable ways of judging individuals. White people commit crimes, white people do stupid things, white people vote for Democrats, white people become communists. I'm not saying that these things don't happen. I'm just talking about trends.
What will you be speaking about at the rally tomorrow?
Generally in the theme of Unite the Right. I think that my idea here is that I understand why people like Mike Cernovich and Gavin McInnes do not want to talk about the problem that Jewish people are in our society. And so I'm more than happy to let them keep their mouths shut about it. What I get upset with is when they punch right, when they attack us, when we're not attacking them. And so my overall theme, I mean, I've written for about 15 minutes, and there's a few subjects I'm going to touch on. But the primary driving thing is that I don't think that people should be punching right. If you don't want to get into racial politics, I understand. It's difficult. I lost my job over it. I'm very lucky that I'm talented enough to make my own business. But I understand why people don't want to get into some of the subject matter that we talk about on the Radical Agenda. But if they want to defeat the left, then they should not interfere with me while I'm trying to drag the Overton window rightward.
Can you talk a little bit about the right adopting the politics or the political style of the left, the tactics?
The adopting the tactics of the left, I spoke to this recently, and the idea being the left operates by the rules of warfare and espionage, okay? They lie, cheat, steal, assault, murder. That's what the left does, and we are still trying to adhere to the rules of civil discourse. Now, I'm not going to say that people on the right should be out breaking the law, but it's time for us to stop pretending that we are dealing with people who are operating by the same set of rules as we are. If we take control of the government, for example, and we say, here's a good example. So the left says, nobody can discriminate against gays, and we're going to compel every state in the Union to have gay marriage because somehow we found that in the Constitution of the United States. Well, what the right would generally do about that, or at least the libertarian wing of it, would say, let's just get the government out of marriage. Let's just abolish the marriage license. And people a little further to the right, your average conservative, would say, well, let's ban gay marriage. Well, maybe we should make the left afraid of us. Maybe we should make the left want to be the ones who want limited government. We say we're going to reinstate our sodomy laws. Maybe we're going to say that let's ban race mixing. I'm just using extreme examples to draw the point, okay? These people go all of the way. There is nothing that they won't do. They weren't even done with the gay marriage thing. They didn't even let Kim Davis out of jail before they were shoving tranny bathrooms down our throats, okay? So, we have to start acting in as extreme a manner as them, and then maybe after a few decades of that, they'll be the ones who want limited government.
Can you talk about specific tactics?
Specific tactics, I mean, identity politics would probably be the most obvious one. We have the left in this country wants to make everything about blacks and gays and women, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you know what? The whites are still the majority in this country, and males still control the majority of the wealth. So maybe we'll just say, hey, you want to have identity politics? White males are the most powerful people here, and you're a fool to screw with us on those grounds.
Well, what does that mean, though? You're a fool, like, what you're implying?
We rile up white people. You know, I mean, people are talking about, everybody thinks Donald Trump riled up white nationalists. Well, you know what? I think the next guy who comes along actually should.
What does that mean? Like angry Facebook posts, or like what?
Angry. How about the next time they want to pass an immigration law, they don't make it based on whether you speak English or make money. How about they make it explicitly racial?
That's what you want.
Yeah. I think that would make a lot more sense. Because look at what happens, because it's not like you gain anything from denying it, right? You see that interaction between Jim Acosta and Stephen Miller, right? He says, oh, well, because you say that people should have to speak English and be able to positively contribute to our society, you're only going to have people from Britain and Australia, right? Well, you know, if that's basically, you know, they say you're trying to change the ethnic makeup of the country by saying people have to be worth a damn, okay? And Stephen Miller, understandably, said, wow, that's a pretty racist statement. Well, you know what? How about instead of, like, playing their stupid game of calling people racist, how about we say, yeah, we want white people here because we've got an explicit preference for that.
What about organizing tactics to grow your movement and gain legitimacy?
I think you don't typically see a great deal of right-wing activism, right? So, I mean, I got involved in politics with, like, the Tea Party in 2009, and that was, I didn't even realize it at the time, but the reason that was a phenomenon was because the right-wingers have jobs and shit, and they don't have time to be running around waving signs usually. But clearly, that is an effective political tactic, and so we need to adopt it. And moreover, those activist groups who are running around, the unemployed losers that we mock in between our productive efforts, are not just screaming into the ether for no reason. They're building teams. They're figuring out who the leaders are. They are sizing up strengths and weaknesses. They are preparing for open warfare. Those activist groups are what become the communist revolution in the future. And there's a piece I recently read in Jacobite Mag, where a guy, I believe his name is Dan Hines, and he says, political violence is a game the right can't win because we don't have that organization. We might, you know, we have a respect for soldiers and lawmen that our leftist rivals don't have. We are the guys generally who are the firearms enthusiasts, but we do not have the organization. We don't have the camaraderie. We don't have the trust level that our rivals do. And that camaraderie and trust is built up through activism, and that is one of the tactics that we're adopting.
Organizing, going to rallies, that kind of thing.
Organizing, going to rallies, making friends, you know, doing things that are not explicitly business related, or, you know, look, the right, we tend to be about our business and our families, right? And so the idea that we're all going to just, I don't know, run around, palling around and making hell on the streets is something that most of us stopped doing when we were fucking teenagers. Sorry for the F. And so we have to get out of that mindset, because that is a tactic that's being used against us, and we're adopting it.
So tomorrow you were told not to go to a certain park, to Emancipation Park.
Lee Park. Don't say that again in this interview.
But you plan on going anyway.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do if the cops stop you?
My understanding of it is that the cops are not going to stop us, even if we don't have a permit. I will not, I'll say it explicitly here, I will not purposely get into a conflict with law enforcement. We just had law enforcement come up on us in another parking lot. And we cooperated with them fully. That's why I got this body camera on. I want to be transparent. I want to obey the law. My understanding of it is that Lee Park is a public place, and that anybody who wants to go there is welcome to go there. And the city trying to revoke our permit is a weak tactic by which to deter our action. We are not going to allow them to do that, so we're going to go to the park anyway.
So you're taking up the mantle of Martin Luther King Jr. with nonviolent protests.
I don't know that Martin Luther King Jr. was the first guy to protest, but we are going to go somewhere and make our presence felt, and to whatever extent that relates to Martin Luther King, have at it.
Nonviolent protests.
The idea is to remain nonviolent. Sadly, our rivals, they didn't pick up Martin Luther King's notebook there, and they've been known to engage in violence, so we're prepared for that.
Well, that's a benefit for you, because then you look like victims.
It is not a benefit for us because we will not be portrayed as victims. If they attack us and we hurt them, we'll go on trial and we'll be convicted because they'll pack our jury with blacks and communists. So we have to avoid that.
Isn't the goal to gain sympathy among maybe moderate people who would be a little bit sympathetic towards you but wouldn't embrace your ideals?
Well, I imagine that there are people amongst us who do have that as their goal. Me personally, I'd rather further radicalize people who are more or less on my side already.
Why?
Because I don't believe that most of the country has the sense of urgency that I do. I think that we are in dire straits, and I don't think that we have a great deal of time left to defend what's left of our civilization and our race. And if we don't stand up and stop them from destroying us, then, I don't know how much time we have, but it's not decades.
What do you mean by destroying you?
Well, we'll make it explicitly racial. I mean, the immigration thing is designed to exterminate the white race. It's done intentionally. They don't do this in other countries. Nobody's telling the Africans that they need to open their borders. Nope, certainly not saying that to Israel, right? How about we have open borders in Israel for 30 years? If that works out well for them, we'll try it in the United States. I suspect Mr. Netanyahu wouldn't agree with that. We have a situation where non-whites are being brought into our neighborhoods. We're being told that we can't discriminate against them and that if we insult them, that we're going to be in all sorts of hot water. And what happens is you put boys and girls in a room together, and shocking enough, we all sort of know what happens, right? And that means that for every time we lose a white woman to race mixing, that is that many fewer white people that we're ever going to have. And if you do that long enough, then there ain't going to be no more of us, and then our way of life is going to go away with our skin color.
The alt-right is explicitly sexual.
Sexual?
Yeah, it's very fixated
Aren't we all?
Reproducing.
I don't know that. I don't know how much reproductive propaganda I see from the alt-right. We're not pornographers, as our cosmopolitan rivals are, but I certainly when people call into the radical agenda and I hear their kids crying in the background, they say sorry about that, and I say no, thank you for breeding.
More.
Yeah.
Right, but much like ISIS, you found a way to fuse political ideology with young male sexual frustration.
I don't think that at all, because actually if you're just trying to appeal to young male sexual frustration, young males can deal with their sexual frustrations by running around in the barrio and the ghetto, right?
This is a way to channel that energy.
I suppose you could say that everything is sort of driven that way. I mean, males' reproductive instincts are what lead them to seek status and property and everything else, right? I mean, we're all, you could say that we're doing this for money, but let's face it, we're doing this for pussy at the end of the day. And that's like, kind of just the nature of the animal that is man, And so the same thing happens on the left, right? I mean, they're more gearing it towards women, or at least in their rhetoric. But it's appealing to male irresponsibility when you say, "Hey, we've got to subsidize the birth control and everybody gets a free abortion," right?
Are you married?
No.
Why have you failed then?
Why are you under the impression that I failed in anything?
I thought the goal is to get white people breeding.
Well, I do not want to talk about my romantic life with you. I'm just informing you that I don't have a marriage license.
Okay.
Harem is open for spots.
What else, Josh?
Consider this the interview.
Do you want to talk more just like background radio show?
Oh yeah, okay. Give me some more bio stuff. Tell me about your radio show.
So I used to be on a broadcast radio program called Free Talk Live, which aired on 160 broadcast stations across the United States. And while I was doing that, I sort of hobbied as a podcaster. And I was fired from that show for standing up for another content producer by the name of Stefan Molyneux. Had a video with Charles Murray talking about race and IQ and suggesting that the disparity in white and black IQ had genetic origin. Somebody brought that video to the attention of a Facebook group for financial supporters of the program, and they called Stefan Molyneux a racist. And I thought that even before I ever got into all this racial stuff, which I was not always in, by the way, even before I ever got into this, I always thought that race baiting was a really despicable, commie, shitty thing for people to do. So I challenged the merits of the accusation, and I said, well, this seems to be an honest intellectual inquiry, and tried to address some of the points, at which point I was asked to apologize for being racist. And so I said, if I've said something incorrect, by all means point it out. I'll retract my incorrection. I'll thank you for making the correction. No correction was forthcoming, and so I refused to apologize, and I was fired. And so I decided to work harder on my own production in order to make it my profession. Radical Agenda airs live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, most of the time, unless I'm traveling doing something like this. We take calls on the air, and we talk about whatever the news of the day is, or whatever anybody wants to call in about. Sometimes we talk about relationships or money or politics or race or any number of different topics, but the idea behind it is that there's no such thing as going too far. I'm never going to stop and be like, oh, this might hurt somebody's feelings. It's just not a function of the program, and so it makes, for those with a strong stomach, it makes for an entertaining program.
How do you make money?
How do I make money? There's several channels that I do. Primarily, it is funded by the audience. I used to simply solicit donations. I still do. Now I sell premium memberships so people can get access to members-only bonus content. I at one point had a members-only discussion forum, but I had to shut that down for privacy concerns. I'm hiring a web developer to provide that feature. I also sell these fine T-shirts. If you want, they're $25, and I'll give you a little discount, $5 because you're cute. But and I've got these RWDS, Right Wing Death Squads, Radical Agenda hats, and I've got hoodies, but it's a little warm out for that, stickers, that sort of thing. So I get a little bit of money in advertising revenue, but you can imagine with my foul mouth and the subject matter of the show, advertisers not exactly lined up around the block to pay me.
So when did you get into, as you said, the racial stuff?
It was really as I got fired from the show.
When was that?
This was in 2015, and I mean it was the Black Lives Matter thing really scared me. Okay, I used to be a police accountability activist. I used to be one of these guys who run around with a camera filming the cops, and I used to submit pieces to a very popular police accountability website called copblock.org. And when the Trayvon Martin case happened, I thought that was a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense. I said, we've got photos of this guy bleeding out of his head. He's got some little wannabe gangster saying, you're going to die tonight, motherfucker. He's the night neighborhood watchman. He's a private sector guy. Why would libertarians be upset that the neighborhood watch guy killed somebody who was attacking him? And I thought that was really weird. And then, Michael Brown and Tamir Rice and all these different things happen. And in every single case, it's some little black asshole behaving like a savage, and he gets himself in trouble, shockingly enough. And so I'm seeing these other people who I used to think were very respectable jump on board with a race-baiting agenda just to make the police look bad. And again, I'm a guy who understands that there's problems with law enforcement as an institution, and I'm really interested in seeing those problems solved. But you can't solve them by distracting from the fact, by blaming it on race and acting like cops are out hunting Negroes for sport. It's obnoxious. And so that started to make me realize, there's a racial conflict going on. These people are starting riots. They're burning down pizzerias and pharmacies and blowing people's brains out at their protests, talking about they've got a First Amendment right to do so. And I started to realize, whatever problems I might have with my fellow white people, they generally are not inclined to such behavior, and you got to kind of take that into consideration when you're thinking about how to organize your society.
They're not inclined to such behavior?
The last time I saw a bunch of white people riot because an armed robber got shot, been a while, let's say.
In Oklahoma City.
Okay, so exactly. You have to go back to Oklahoma City to talk about a white act of terrorism,
Elliot Rodger,
right?
Dylan Roof.
Okay, so now you've managed to name 3 people, and I'm pretty sure Elliot Rodger wasn't explicitly white, by the way. But, literally, you remember the names. But the thing is, you remember the names of white bombers and mass shooters, okay? Can you tell me the name of all 19 hijackers on 9/11 off the top of your head? Of course you can. You can't tell me the names of the last dozen people to blow themselves up in Europe, because it happens all the time. You can remember Dylan Roof's name. You can remember Tim McVeigh's name.
White people were capable of violence.
I didn't say capable. Of course we're capable. I'm carrying a pistol. I go to the gym all the time. I'm trying to make myself more capable of violence. We conquered the entire planet. We have the largest military in history of mankind. It's the inclinations and aptitudes, right? So white people, when they want to kill people, they go and they join the fucking military, right?
But you have a proven inclination towards crime.
I am not saying... Do you understand the difference between reliable ways of judging individuals and demographic trends?
What?
I guess not.
What
do you, so like, if you want to understand demographic trends, right? Like, if I tell you that men happen to be stronger than women, okay, I think that you're capable, whether you want to admit it or not, you're capable of understanding that. Now, if, I don't know, who's the female MMA, Ronda Rousey or whatever, if this asshole comes in here and knocks my head off, you'd be like, see, women are stronger than men, and I call you a retard anyway, because you know that it's not true. Demographic trends are a thing worth observing when you're trying to organize your society, particularly when it comes to politics and economics, because if you don't take those things into consideration, you're going to make bad decisions. Look, we know that men tend to fill up our prisons, right? We don't need nearly as many female prisons as we do male prisons, right? Because men are generally a larger crime problem. That does not mean that all men are criminals. It just means that there's a demographic trend we're taking into consideration. And so if you find a girl who's been beaten and raped behind a tree somewhere, you don't go start patting out all the blue-eyed, blonde-haired girls.
Should we, to reduce crime, castrate more men then?
Depending on the men, sure. I mean, if you've got, I would say eugenic sterilization is a program that it becomes absolutely necessary in the presence of a welfare state, especially if you're going to get socialized medicine, which I'm pretty sure we're around the corner from.
What else, Josh?
What else you got?
Do you want any more of your biography? So in 2015, you got into the racial stuff. So that is parallel with the Trump campaign, but it wasn't influenced by the Trump campaign?
Even after I got into that, I still thought Donald Trump was a joke. As a matter of fact, the first thing on my website, ChristopherCantwell.com, is about Donald Trump, is... I forget the title of it, but it said Donald Trump proves the Republican Party is helpless or something, because I thought of him as a joke. Like, I thought the whole birther thing was obnoxious, for example, and I was like, he's just doing this because he wants to sell books, right? Which I think of a lot of people who run for president, right? And it wasn't, I don't know how many debates it was in, and as a matter of fact, if you're a premium member, ChristopherCantwell.com/join, you can go back and get the archives of the show, and we did things where I called it defacing the debate. And at first it was even like even being hip to sort of the racial stuff. I thought his obsession with immigration was weird, you know, and I didn't quite understand it. But when I started seeing what was going on in Europe, I was like, oh, all right, I didn't want that to happen here. And so I started listening to Donald Trump more. And so, you know, has Donald Trump influenced my ideas? Of course, he's the president of the United States, you know. But I would not say that. It is explicitly that. What made me feel threatened as a racial group was the Black Lives Matter thing. And when I started talking about that on the show, people who were very interested in race started calling in and trying to convince me that Jews were behind all of this. And at first I thought that was foundationally ridiculous in my understanding of like race and IQ. I understood Jews to be, on average, have a higher IQ than the average white. And so I was originally dismissive of them, until I started noticing, I installed a browser plugin called the Coincidence Detector, which puts Jewish surnames in 3 sets of parentheses so that you can identify who these people are. And I began to notice this really disturbing trend, that a vastly disproportionate number of the communist propagandists that I was seeing in the media were all Jews. And I realized, like, there's something to this, and I was introduced to a theory of evolutionary psychology that says it's sort of, since the Jews are like sort of incapable of having a homeland and defending it or whatever, they have to live amongst other peoples. And since they have to live amongst other peoples and want to maintain themselves as a distinct ethnic and cultural group, they must preach this multiculturalist nonsense in order to preserve their own existence. And that was difficult for me to swallow at first, but it became difficult to ignore after a period of time, too.
Was it difficult to swallow because it's patently absurd?
No, I don't think that you've actually made a case that it's not. You've just turned around and said that you don't agree with my position, which I'm not surprised by.
I'm familiar with Kevin McDonald.
Okay.
I know the theories you're talking about.
Okay, so what have you seen to disprove McDonald's theory?
It's just what is the evidence?
So this is what I'm talking about.
Theories based on some kind of bad experience he had in the 60s.
I don't think that's what Kevin McDonald wrote 3 books about, some bad experience that he had in the 60s. I think, no, as a matter of fact, I don't think that he could write 3 books about some bad experience that he had in the 60s. You're miscategorizing what he's doing, right? And this is why I treated you like crap when we were trying to organize this thing, because you miscategorize things, right? And I mean, you know, this is what happens, right? You got these people who come out and they lie and they miscategorize what people are doing in the media, and you got a bunch of people running around with false ideas in their heads, and then you wonder wonder why we get mad. Okay, that's not what it is. It's a really well thought out theory of evolutionary psychology. Now, if you've heard of Kevin McDonald and you're saying he had a thing that in the '60s, then what tells me is you're not actually familiar with him, right?
That's
You
just based on his own
you didn't
writing.
read the damn book. You have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, you're saying it's all based on some experience he had in the '60s. You don't know what you're talking about. You're purposely ignorant of the facts, and you're just asserting that it's absurd. Right? So who's like, this is the thing. I do this professionally, okay? 3 days a week I take open phones open to the public. Anybody can call me up, disprove. If anti-Semitism is false, then anybody who wants to can call 747-234-2254, Radical Agenda on Skype every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and tell 10,000 anti-Semites how stupid they are. And nobody chooses to do that because nobody's willing to debate these subjects on the merits. They just do what you did, which is not inform yourself and assert it's absurd.
Do you have some kind of hard data that to show that Jews have a biological instinct?
Do you have some hard data that they don't?
What?
Do you have some hard data that they don't?
You can't prove a negative.
Well, if I'm telling you that I'm seeing a disproportionate representation of something, right? So take, for example, okay, the reason that Black Lives Matter thinks it's appropriate to run around the streets setting shit on fire is because blacks are 13% of the population and 30% of those killed by police. Now, that is a demographic disparity, and they say that because there's a demographic disparity, that means that white racism is causing police to hunt Negroes for sport and filling up our prisons for no other reason than white racism. Well, if you believe that, then it really must be extraordinarily difficult to understand how about half of the Supreme Court is Jews, while they don't make nearly 50% of our population. When you talk about how many Jews are represented in any number of positions of power, especially in the media, okay, they are disproportionately represented everywhere. They're disproportionately represented in the media that keeps on shoving communist propaganda down our throat, and I don't think that that's a mere coincidence. And the fact that everybody jumps down your throat and tries to run you out of polite society when you point it out leads me to believe that they know there's something to it, and they don't want to debate it on the merits.
Didn't you say that Jews had higher IQs than whites?
I did say that Jews have higher IQs on whites, and that is fine with me.
Could
the problem is
meritocracy?
and this is exactly why I was initially dismissive of the anti-Semites. But the problem is not that they are excelling in certain fields. The problem is not that they have defeated me in a contest. The problem is that they are using the control that they have over the society in such a fashion as to work against our interests, and in a fashion that threatens the survival of my race and nation. Now, maybe there's some other explanation than their ethnic origins. Maybe there's something else to it, but I can identify the pattern, and if we discriminate against them, then we can avoid catastrophic outcomes. Give you an example. I do not believe that every Jew in America is a subversive element working against Donald Trump. But I do believe that if he fired every Jew in the intelligence agencies, that he would probably stop the leaks, at least those. The ones within the White House, that's a different story. But if he fired every Jew in the intelligence agency, then probably transcripts of his phone calls would stop making their way to the pages of the New York Times.
I mean, Ivanka Trump is leaking.
What?
Ivanka Trump is leaking. They're all leaking.
Okay,
there's
so
not
there's
some ethnic compulsion. That's far afield, though. Let's not get into that. When did you turn on the Jews?
I mean, it was probably within the same year of me getting hip to the race and IQ thing. It was not long after that. People called into it. I was trying to find people who were capable of refuting the arguments, and they are few in number indeed. When you talk about these questions, you get sort of these like silly statements of people like you're making that you don't understand the subject matter, and you just say, well, I think that I've got an exception to the rule here, as if I had told you that it was a reliable way of individuals when I told you from the beginning of the interview that it wasn't. So, the fact that everybody all of a sudden forgets about demographic disparities when we start talking about them, but they're perfectly happy to take demographic disparities into consideration when we're talking about blacks in crime, it's like it's amazing the doublethink that goes on.
So can you talk just a little bit more about how what's next? Like, how do you gain more mainstream credibility for your movement? How do you gain more people to follow?
I do not think gaining mainstream credibility for our movement is a worthwhile thing. I think that people who feel the way I do should move to the same place and engage in a political migration. The United States is, I forget exactly what it's at now, but I mean, whites are losing our majorities very fast. And many whites are Democrats, and so there's not a whole lot of point in trying to negotiate with them. So I think that people who feel the way I feel should move to, say, New Hampshire. I originally moved there for a thing known as the Free State Project. I'm no longer associated with them. But, New Hampshire is 96% white, and it's a very libertarian society, and I think that that might have something to do with it. And so maybe white nationalists begin moving to New Hampshire. I know there's another thing called the Northwest Front that I haven't looked into much, but people have suggested this. Whatever it is, geographically concentrate and form your own political bodies and detach ourselves from the elements of the federal government that are hostile to our way of life. That is not something that I need to gain mainstream credibility to do. I just need to get more people motivated enough to pick up their lives and move.
But if your goal is to maintain the white race, how could you do it with such tiny numbers in a tiny state?
Well, I know that we can't do it in the multicultural hellhole of America. And I know that I cannot convince 320 million Americans of things that the person of average intelligence is just incapable of really understanding. And more importantly, these things require specialization, right? For me to talk to you about these things, this is what I do for a living. Most people are never going to be able to understand what I'm talking about, much less act on it or relay these ideas to others. And so I am looking at a scenario that's dire straits. Now, how do we maintain our race in smaller numbers? It's a bigger challenge than it is with larger numbers, but it is impossible when we have compulsory integration. So if we can live in a place where we are together and we don't have the compulsory integration, we can maintain our existence. We socially encourage breeding by doing things like cutting taxes and reducing regulatory burdens to business, discriminating in terms of immigration policy. These are all things that we can do inside of our own society, inside of our own nation, if you will, to make to preserve our race and nation and way of life. If we want to be more extreme about it, I've floated the idea of polygamy, men taking more than one wife, and then if we can provide a enviable lifestyle on our side of the border, and white women want to come and escape the multicultural hellhole of the United States, then we're more than welcome. We're more than happy to make them second and third wife to the capable, productive men that we have amongst us. Just an idea I'm floating. I'm not married to one woman, much less three. But it's a concept that it's a way to rapidly grow a population, right? So those are some of the ideas.
Yeah.
A couple of follow-ups on that. Just to...
Can I come around?
Yeah. So I guess politically, it sounds like, and I'll let Ellie ask the question,
Okay.
But I'm interested in politically, it'd be more centralized and polarizing into one spot than electoral politics. And then sort of following up on that, I just want to hear more of an elaboration on when you say you want to protect the white race and this nation, and a further elaboration on what that means.
Okay. So you don't advocate in being involved in electoral politics nationwide. You want to focus your numbers first in one place.
Well, I want to make it clear I don't advocate against participating in national electoral politics. I just don't think it's our salvation. Whatever effort we can put into electoral politics on a federal level that is an efficient use of resources, fantastic. I propagandized for Donald Trump on social media all I could. But you know what? Donald Trump has plenty of money and he's not getting any of mine. Okay? But I might be more inclined to give money to a more local official, something that I can have a greater impact on. When you get involved with the federal government, it's just too big. It's your impact on it is so small that I think you could probably do more culturally than you can by running around knocking on doors, handing out flyers or whatever. So I don't eschew federal politics. I just don't think that we can do anything other than perhaps slow the bleeding. Like I said, I don't think Donald Trump, is doing what is necessary to save our race and nation, but he's better than Hillary Clinton for sure. And so anybody who thinks that they can stay home at Election Day is a fool in my book.
But the alt-right has a man in the White House in Steve Bannon.
If you think that Steve Bannon, this is the thing. I'm happy to let the media run with those memes, but it's nonsense, okay?
Why?
Why? Because Steve Bannon is not alt-right. The idea that he said he was skeptical of like having his kids go to a school with a lot of Jews or something like that doesn't mean that he's all gas the kikes race war now, right? He's not showing up. I don't think that he's listening to the radical agenda, shall we say? And so, the fact that Steve Bannon's a right-wing guy who understands that demographics come into play is good. I'm really glad that that's happening. But if our guy was in the White House, then we wouldn't be talking about cutting immigration in half over the course of 40 years. We would be shutting the borders and starting to deport people henceforth.
So everyone moves to New Hampshire to start this government that like protects the white race. What do you think you are protecting when you say you're protecting the white race?
There's the genetic integrity of the thing to begin with, and then there's a way of life that comes along with that. I mean, what we recognize as Western civilization, okay? The idea that you have a rule of law that protects property and is not subject to the whims of public opinion is a uniquely white Western concept, and that. We can see going away. You look at what they're trying to do with Donald Trump right now. You have Maxine Waters running around talking about impeachment, even though there's no evidence of any crime, because they don't believe that the law functions as we think the law should function. The law is, I'm angry at you and I'm going to direct the power of the state at you, right? These are the type of nonsensical ideas that are invading our society. And it's a racial conflict. White people came up with these ideas. And if we're not around, then we won't be able to preserve them. The right to keep and bear arms, you might notice if you take a look at the demographics of these things, the people who want us to be able to keep and carry our guns tend to be white and they tend to be male. So that is a demographic pattern that I'm capable of observing, and in order for me to preserve my way of life, I need to protect the demographic.
Didn't white people come up with egalitarianism and democracy then?
I think that you're thinking of, I don't know the exact origin of democracy, but I can say that Karl Marx came up with communism and he was a Jew, which should tell you something about that.
Well, I'm just saying, the cultural heritage you say you want to protect, you are also trying to subvert.
No, because egalitarianism is not that way of life. The idea that the law applies equally to people is not egalitarianism in that sense. The idea that people have a right to an equal outcome or some right to dignity is communistic in nature. That is a Jew way of thinking. That is not a white Western patriarchal way of thinking.
So what does the government look like in your dream New Hampshire?
Hopefully you don't see a whole lot of it is kind of the idea. The idea of the government is essentially to protect the border, and what would likely end up being the case. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing even like property protection services privatized, where you would hire your own security instead of law enforcement. But chances are you'd probably have some minimal night watchman type state in order to deal with dispute resolutions and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. People who aggress against others' property or break contracts would probably find themselves up in a government courtroom somewhere. And the government primarily would operate on the externalities that threaten our society. They would not be interfering very much with the lives of the people inside.
Do you believe, as some in the alt-right do, that there should be an expanded welfare state just for white people? Universal health care for white people?
I disagree with people on the alt-right vehemently who say that, because I believe that the welfare state has a dysgenic effect on the society. Our economic incentives, so long as we're going to have central economic planning within a society, the economic incentives need to be organized in such a fashion as to promote good breeding. And when you offer people food stamps and socialized medicine and stuff, when you're willing to subsidize the behaviors, the unproductive, unhelpful, dysgenic behaviors of people, you end up with a very bottom-heavy society. And then those people look at the Browns on the other side of the border and say, they're not so different from us, why don't we let them in? And you have to prevent that from happening. I think that we should live in an absolute free market meritocracy where people eat or starve by the virtue of their ability to meet the needs of others in a market.
Don't many in the alt-right argue that the natural product of capitalism is multiculturalism and race mixing, as you call it?
I disagree with them on that, because the idea behind that is that what we have in the United States and most places is that everybody's existence is subsidized through commons at the very least. Okay, so you take like borders, for example. The borders are spaces owned by governments, and the governments choose not to protect them. So the government does a bad job being the steward of a piece of property. And not only that, but then they set up these economic incentives that people can come over here and collect welfare or get free medicine or any number of benefits. And then shockingly enough, a bunch of people who have terrible lives on the other side of that geopolitical boundary can't get here fast enough. That's not the market, That's the government subsidizing the dysgenic behavior I was just talking about. And so if you have a scenario where the government is a little bit more picky about who it gives welfare to, well, I'd have a hard time arguing that that's not a good idea. But I would say be so picky as to exclude everyone from it. And then people who are not productive. I mean, even if you have, look, again, I didn't get into this. I didn't get into politics because of race. I wanted to defend a way of life, right? Race became a factor because I understood it was impossible to ignore while the Democratic Party was trying to exterminate whites. And so if you have a society, in my opinion, if you didn't have any welfare state, if you didn't have any anti-discrimination laws, if you didn't have a minimum wage, then I don't think that you'd actually have the demographic problems, because those are economic incentives that are being set up by the government, which is subsidizing the invasion.
Anything else?
I kind of like what you're going on, just in terms of their views of the different speakers. The march this weekend for rally.
You want a rundown of them?
Not so much a rundown, but just I guess sort of what is it like in terms of
Come on now.
capturing media and things like that.
Like media attention.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of all the media attention this rally has brought?
I think it's great, and I think it's funny too, because it seems to me that particularly the Jews in the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center think that by bringing attention to us, they're somehow going to stop us from doing this. And I find that very amusing, because I built my entire business model up around bad publicity. And so the more these people want to say my name, then the more people will hear what I have to say, and the more money that I will make, which I will use to hire other people to spread my message further.
How does that help the alt-right, not just you?
It helps the alt-right, because if you listen to the last part of what I was saying, it spreads the message further.
But you were saying that you don't care about recruiting more people.
It is not that I don't care about recruiting more people. It is that I don't necessarily, I don't think that I'm going to convince somebody who voted for Hillary Clinton to save the white race. It's like, okay, you're hopeless. I'm not here to convince you of the virtue of my ideas. What I want to do is I want to find people who understand, who value the same way of life that I do. The idea, who value the rule of law, who value, patriarchal societies, who value, white Western values, and convince them that they need to take it all the way, that they need to be further right. I want to move the Overton window rightward, because what you have, all right, so the Overton window is an important part of this, okay? So you have in society, there's a certain allowable range of discussion, right? And right now that allowable range of discussion is we should have socialized medicine, or we should just heavily subsidize everybody's health care, right? That's a really big problem, in my opinion, because the conversation needs to be getting the government completely out of the healthcare industry. Not everybody in the alt-right agrees with me on that, but that's just the premise that one of the examples that I'm making. You have the range of allowable discussion is either whites are evil oppressors who need to be stopped at all costs, or white people and everybody else should stop engaging in identity politics, right? That's the allowable range of discussion. If we want to move the window further rightward, it's white people should explicitly defend their interests, even if at the expense of other racial groups, right? I'm going to move that Overton window rightward so that we can have more people will be not, they're on my side of the center already, right? But I want them to be all the way over here.
How does the media attention help move the Overton window?
Because it points out how ridiculous a lot of these people are for those who are intelligent enough to understand it, right? So the ADL wants to go and tell everybody that I'm a terrible person. That's fine. I sincerely hope that somebody who picked up on that decides to call into the Radical Agenda or listen to the show, right? I hope that they call in and argue with me and help me articulate my arguments better, right? The idea being that the more people who are exposed to the ideas, I think that if they are, If they are predisposed to adopting the ideas from a genetic or cultural perspective, then getting exposed to the radical agenda will radicalize them.
So, like, media coverage of this will help people become more curious about what you believe.
Hopefully, yeah.
Does it do anything else for you? Does it help you recruit?
If people are interested in my ideas, that's kind of what I'm talking about, recruiting, right? We're talking about getting people interested in far-right ideas. And so anything that brings attention to far-right ideas is, in my book, good. I don't believe in bad press. People who go out and try to smear me, this has been happening for years. Like with the libertarians, I mean, they've been trying to strangle my media career before I really had one, right? And they all say terrible things about me. A lot of times it's not even true. And a few people who have the intellect and curiosity to try to find out the truth come along and find me, right? So long before I ever said anything about race, a bunch of communists who are trying to invade the libertarian movement were running around calling me a racist and stuff on Facebook. And a few people who happen to have the intellectual curiosity to find out instead of listening to this loudmouth idiot came along to find me. There's probably over 100 people who could tell you they found Christopher Cantwell on the radical agenda because of some anti-cop activist in Texas named Antonio Bueller, who was running around calling me a racist and a sexist and blocking everybody who was a mutual Facebook friend. And they were like, well, you're kind of a jerk, but let me go see what this guy is about. So anybody who wants to go and, say whatever you want about me, just spell my name right.
Social media played a big role in your radicalization.
Yeah, I mean, it's the means by which I gain a lot of the information that I have, yeah.
But also the way people interact on social media, you reacted against that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's nothing more fun. I shouldn't say nothing. I imagine there are, but there are a few things that I find more entertaining than making leftists go crazy on social media. It's one of my favorite hobbies.
So that's a big part of the alt-right, like meme wars or whatever,
oh, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
How do you move from social media to real power?
Here we find ourselves. You say, okay, it's really fun that we're all exchanging memes and stuff like that, and Pepe's fun, but you know what? Why don't we all go show up at the same place, and then you do it, right? And for me, that's not so new, right? I've been an activist for a long time, involved with the libertarians. I'm an anti-war guy, right? So this is not all entirely unfamiliar to me. The alt-right, a lot of people are very new to that sort of thing, but to me, that seems normal, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So, what's next? Like,
what's next?
Memes are normal. We're stepping out of the memes.
Well, I mean, I don't have anything scheduled next. I mean, so we're going to go to League Park tomorrow, and we're going to let them know that we're not happy about them removing that statue. And then I'm going to go back to New Hampshire, and I'm going to do a radio show until something else catches my attention, and then I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go there. And I'm going to keep on trying to increase my profile, profit in the process in order to fund all of this, in order to spread the ideas that I think are important to spread, in hopes that it will result in more action. I am not under the impression that I personally am going to save my race and nation. Okay, I'm here to spread ideas, talk, and frankly enjoy myself, in the hopes that somebody more capable will come along and do that. Somebody like Donald Trump, who does not give his daughter to a Jew.
So Donald Trump, but like more racist.
Yeah, more racist, a lot more racist than Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump is telling the truth when he says, I'm the least racist person around. I don't think that you could feel about race the way I do and watch that Kushner bastard walk around with that beautiful girl, okay? So yeah, I think somebody a lot more racist than Donald Trump. Hopefully, you get somebody with a $10 billion in the bank decides to download the radical agenda, and I think that you're going to see the world change fast.
Just get some wide shots.
Get some wide shots. I was actually just one thing I'd like to agree with if we get time for it. So we just do a 2-camera introduction. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Let's just while he's sitting, let's get it now.
We're gonna get a couple wide shots and we'll cut, and we're gonna have to
sitting there.
Okay.
Chatting.
So we have to like keep talking, and we can keep talking about politics or whatever. We can get like.
How old are you?
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here talking to you. We've more or less gone through the politics. I figured I'd ask you. I figured I'd ask you a question.
We need to so let's keep talking about politics because basically our facial emotions need to be the same.
Okay.
But we could get into stuff that's like, more in the weeds that we can't really listen right for the broadcast.
I understand. So, what do you want to know then?
What's the most important political issue? Like something concrete.
Guns.
Why guns?
Because if I can't defend myself, that's pretty much the end of that. It has to be survival first. What's the thing? Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something like that? I don't know that guns are what he envisioned, but my survival is sort of important. So when, you're looking at this event, right? And you listen to what the ADL has to say about it. They say this is the largest hate gathering of its kind in decades. They're acting like this is the second coming of Adolf Hitler and we're all the brown shirts, whatever, right? Well, in my opinion, that's worth taking into consideration because if you paid any attention to the Republican primary, they all had a contest over who could be faster to kill baby Hitler or whatever, right? So I think that these people are a threat to my safety.
Did they answer that question?
I know that Jeb Bush immediately went and said, I'd kill baby Hitler. He couldn't say it fast enough, right? Because he doesn't know anything about Germany, right? But So people say those things that, like, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler before he, bothered these half dozen Jews or whatever, they. Got that, right? So, you gotta remember the 6 trillion. So the idea being, these guys look at this like if they whack one of us, they save the future, right? And so I'm genuinely concerned for my safety. I've gotten a lot of threats. People, just before I came here, I was in the Walmart parking lot. A bunch of guys came up and bugged us, and then they walked away, called the cops, lied, and said I pulled a firearm on them. Now, if I didn't have the video and witnesses, right, I could be in jail right now on a felony.
But they didn't pull a gun on you.
No, they didn't pull a gun on me because they're a little bunch of little fucking faggots who would rather call the police and lie than stand up like a man and fight. I don't. Well, you know what? I don't know. Black Lives Matter. These people have a capacity for violence far more than the fucking half dozen little white faggots who we just chased out of there, right?
Have you been threatened with a weapon?
I have not had a gun pulled on me, but I get threats, in email, people fucking leave nasty voicemails for me. People have said that I'll fucking kill you more than once. Blacks in particular have this really nasty habit of doing that, shockingly enough. And so, I think that Black Lives Matter is a fucking threat to my safety. I think that communists throughout the entire history, not the entire history of the world, but, throughout many years of history, communists have a nasty habit starting revolutions for the sake of equality where they start killing everyone they perceive to be the bourgeois. And so I think that it's imperative, absolutely, there's nothing more important than being able to defend ourselves. And so my highest number one issue is guns, and you don't catch me going to many places where I can't carry one.
Why do you use the term communist?
Because I don't perceive there to be a great deal of value in differentiating between Democrats, democratic socialists, and whatever other asshole name they try to apply to their nonsensical ideas of egalitarianism.
But say like the CEO of Starbucks, very committed to equality and all that, would you call him a communist?
Yes.
Why?
Because he's promoting communism. If he's saying that he's dedicated to the ideas of equality, first of all, I'm going to call him a liar because he's the fucking CEO. Hey, hierarchy, nice to meet you. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So if he believes in egalitarianism, then maybe he should go and start slinging coffees across the bar and see how well that works out for his company. But so I'll call him a liar first, but he's promoting communist ideas, and so as far as I'm concerned, he's on that side of the line.
But a more popular buzzword right now is globalist, which
I'll use globalist on YouTube so that they don't catch me saying Jew, but like that's about the only reason I'd ever use that term,
But the implication, if I understand correctly, of globalists are people who want massive multinational corporations in order to whatever.
See, I don't have a problem with I want us to have our own nation in the sense that we control who comes, okay? I actually am a guy a lot of people disagree with me on this on the alt-right. I'm a big fan of trade. I don't want us to wall ourselves and be isolationist, but I don't want to be running around being the world's policeman. I don't want to be opening up our borders to every savage who feels like crossing them. But trade, I think, is a really foundationally important thing, and if, and I believe it fosters good relations when done responsibly. So, I don't throw around the globalist word frequently.
Which side of that do you think will ultimately triumph in the alt-right then?
I would certainly hope my side triumphs, but I will tolerate some tariffs if it means the salvation of my race and nation. You know, I'm willing. You know, take for example. Unfortunately, he's not here. I thought he was going to come. Matt Heimbach, right? So Matt Heimbach.
I met him in 2013.
Very interesting guy, Matt Heimbach. Now, I got to tell you, I don't think Matt Heimbach and I agree on a whole lot, but we are both interested in the salvation of our race and nation, right? And so, I don't see a great deal of trouble. I don't see a great deal of benefit in discussing economics, or I'll discuss economics with Matt Heimbach. That is fun, but I don't see any need to defeat him. You see what I'm saying? Because primarily, let's just say that the Heimbach faction of the alt-right were to become the rulers of white nation, okay? I believe that I could have an honest discussion with them in a way that I can't with the Democratic Party today. And so, if they win, then at least I can try to pursue my ideas afterwards. The Democrats and their little rainbow coalition of degeneracy have no interest in honest discussion. They want to impose bad things upon me and my people, and so they have to be defeated. Anything I can do to undermine their influence is worth doing. I do not feel the same way about Matt Heimbach, because though I disagree with him vehemently about economics and certain other things, he is not. It does me no benefit to see him diminished because he pursues the interests of my race and nation, in his own opinion anyway.
But as a libertarian, what do you make of the turn in the last few years on the far right away from libertarianism and towards greater social welfare programs?
Well, what you've seen...
Like, why is that happening, do you think?
The reason it's happening is because the right is learning that...
Elliot, this is a question we're just going to get from Tone on the mic.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry?
You can answer the question.
Okay, so within the libertarian movement, if one observes it, what you've seen is a dramatic drift leftward on social issues. Okay, and so if we're going to say that transgenderism is awesome and everybody should really think that that's fantastic, and by the way, let's cut taxes by 10%, that does more to undermine my interests than does allowing the welfare state to continue and promoting the social values that are congruent with the nature of white people, right? So while I'm uncomfortable with the central economic planning and to use the dirty word socialism of the alt-right, I am more uncomfortable with the promotion of homosexuality, polyamory, drugs. Those types of things on the left side of libertarianism are, in my opinion, more harmful. The other component of it is it's part of adopting the tactics of the left. Now, if you go out and you tell America, we're going to abolish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, WIC checks, well, guess what's going to happen? You're never going to win an election. It's never going to happen. And so I've even gotten to a point where, okay, well, if we're not going to get rid of pre-existing conditions, we're going to say that buying insurance is not a prerequisite for being insured, then maybe the thing for the Republican Party is to nationalize the healthcare industry. I mean, maybe that's the best thing that they can hope to do, and that will take a lot of wind out of the sails of the Democrat Party. And then they can pursue white cultural interests while the Democrats have no way of saying we're going to offer you more, right? The Democrats look, the Democrat primary was the most hilarious thing in the world to me, because like Hillary Clinton all of a sudden had to sound like the voice of reason, which she doesn't do very well. And so Bernie Sanders is like, all right, we're gonna have a political revolution, free college, Medicare for all, da-da-da. And Hillary Clinton is like, well, all right, I have to pretend I'm good at math now. You know what I'm saying? So, but the entire thing the Democratic Party does is they bait people with free stuff. And so if the Republican Party is noticing that that's causing them to lose elections, and the Democrats are winning by offering people free stuff, and the Republican Party says, well, that's not really congruent with like our political philosophy, but our political philosophy is going to get nowhere if we don't offer free stuff, then fine. Give away free stuff, pursue the cultural interests, and start organizing things in such a fashion as to be more conducive to our cultural way of life. And then if that's the case, if you breed people capable of greater independence, then maybe sometime down the road you can start abolishing these social welfare programs. But while they exist, to act like you should abolish them after people have been bred into those incentives for decades, you're going to lose elections. You have to adopt the tactics of the left in a democracy, because democracy caters to the lowest common denominator.
All right, so we have to get what's called room tone, so we just have to sit here quiet for like 30 seconds.
I'm terrible at that.
change your mind, to be honest. I'm still like living off the high I got from the dog. Doggo nationalism. Live for the pure breed. What?
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, so I think we'll just do one other thing. We just want to have a shot of you just speaking to camera, introducing yourself,
Okay.
and saying what you're here this weekend and what you want to say for the future.
Very good. Okay.
And then anyone who wants to be in the shot behind you can. So if anyone doesn't want to be in the shot, maybe just make sure they're
Okay.
not there.
Good.
Thank you.
From that chicken. Yeah, no, I
This camera over here.
Bullet burping is a good choice for us. Yeah.
As long as no one that doesn't want to be on camera. Yeah, right.
At this point, they should be cognizant of it. Don't worry
I
about
think
it.
they get it.
You mind taking just a couple steps this way? Sorry, back. Right there. We'll just roll with that for a sec.
So now cheering. Love kebabs. Kebabs is right.
Cool. Okay, so just tell us straight to the lens who you are, where we are, why we're here, and what your goals are.
My name is Christopher Cantwell. We're in Charlottesville, Virginia for the Unite the Right rally at Lee Park, and we're here to protest the removal of a monument to General Robert E. Lee. Maybe did I give you another one?
Sure.
My name is Christopher Cantwell. I'm the host of Radical Agenda. We're in Charlottesville, Virginia for the Unite the Right rally in Lee Park to unite the right against the left and to protest the removal of the Robert E. Lee monument here.
Why is that important in a sort of larger global sense for you?
Because communists are trying to destroy our civilization and erase our history. I think it's important to protect the Robert E. Lee monument because communists are trying to erase American history.
Okay, and can you just give us a longer intro? You did this already, I know, but a longer intro in terms of who you are and what you do, in terms of you have a radio show and how edgy is that?
Okay. My name is Christopher Cantwell. I'm the host of Radical Agenda. It's a live, uncensored, right-wing talk show with open phones. And, sorry. My name is Christopher Cantwell. I'm with the Radical Agenda.
So what's the context in which you would use it? I'm sorry.
The context is I'll do whatever the fuck I want with it. All right, that's the terms. What I'm offering is that I'll wait until you publish yours, you know, and maybe if I feel like you've done it justice, then I don't have any reason to post my own recording of it. But as I said, I know that at the minimum you're going to have to edit it for time, so we're going to miss a lot of stuff, and it's probably going to be stuff that I think is important. And at the worst case scenario, you're going to go out of your way to make me look like a fucking asshole, and at which point I'm going to have to prove that you're dishonest people, right? So the terms are, I'm going to record this thing, I do whatever the fuck I want with it, but I don't want to act in bad faith with you either, okay? I'm not trying to scoop you. I'm not going to go publish this before you do. You put your thing out, and if I feel like you've done it justice, then like I have no reason to publish my own copy of it. I'll embed your video on my blog or whatever, you know. But you know, my assumption is you're going to try to screw me. At which point I'll just put the whole thing out unedited so that nobody can say, you know, that I've been dishonest.
Well, if it sets your mind at ease, your persona is offensive. You're like that is your brand.
I understand
we don't
that.
have to do any work to make you be offensive, right?
I understand
like if
that.
I was interviewing Paul Ryan, and I wanted to make him look racist, which I
Right.
would not
Well,
do.
it's not. Well, let's put it this way. there's context to it, and I mean maybe that's completely fucking lost on you. I don't know.
No,
But
I know exactly what you're saying, but what I'm saying to you is that what you are giving us is not something that requires a lot of finesse. If our goal was only to be offensive, which it is not.
I don't think the goal is to be offensive, but I think people are agenda driven, right? So it is your obligation to make the racist look bad, right? So like I'm down here trying to do a positive thing. I'm trying to save my race and nation, okay? And I think it's really goddamn despicable that people try to stop me from doing that and threaten my life and call me a fucking terrorist for it.
But I'm not threatening it.
Well, I don't think that you're threatening my life. What I think you're going to do, and I'm not even familiar with your work. Like I seen you interview Spencer, I don't even think it was bad, right? Like honestly, if it comes out like your interview with Spencer, there's no benefit to me publishing the recording because I think you did a good job there. Okay, I know that Augustus is not a big fan of your outfit. Okay, so I don't know exactly why, but if you screwed him over, I trust his judgment. So I'm protecting myself, right? If you do it justice, all I'm going to do is share your video or whatever. Okay? If I feel that context is missing, then I will publish the unedited recording. I had the thing with. Did you by any chance listen to the phone calls I had with the guy from SPLC?
No, I read the piece.
Right.
About you.
Yeah.
No, I didn't listen to the calls.
And I'll tell you what, they had no objection to me publishing that, but I said publicly, I published those things so that I had content or whatever, but I said publicly, and I'm not exactly anxious to make friends with the Southern Poverty Law Center, but I said Stephen Lemons, as far as these people go, he's all right. He not only did he not go out of his way to lie, but he within the boundaries of what his profession allowed, he took context in consideration, and I thought he did a good job. And I said on Facebook today, two things. I said, the shit is fucked up when you see more integrity from SPLC employees and Jew comedians than you do from Fox News, because literally, I feel like Stephen Lemons at the Southern Poverty Law Center. He was the guy who interviewed me for Hate Watch. He offered, when he heard that I was concerned that I might get arrested or whatever. He's like, look, I know you're not a monster. He's like, if you want somebody to go with you, turn yourself in or whatever like that. He's like, I'll go with you and shit. We should go have a drink and whatever. I'm like, I can't trust you right now just because I don't even trust my own people. They're leaking and whatever. But I'm tempted to understand. I'm resisting the temptation to take you up on your offer, right? I became friendly with this guy whose job is to make me look like shit or whatever, right? And then I just got done with an email exchange. This Jew comedian I had on the show not so long ago. He listens to the Radical Agenda, right? He listens to every single fucking episode, and understandably, he can't exactly get on board with the anti-Semitism or whatever, but he finds the program, entertaining and informative. So he listens to it all the time, and he just asked me if I would come on his show because he's been watching our feeds and stuff. He knows what's going on down here, and he knows that they're totally miscategorizing everything that's happened here on the news channels and whatever. And he said, "You want to come on my show tomorrow?" And I was like, "I wouldn't miss this for an autographed copy of Mein Kampf."
So wait, the SPLC guy offered to be like a witness? He offered
to go with me to turn myself in to law enforcement if I saw fit to do that. Now, I don't know if you understand the context of that. I put out a video the other day. I did a little Facebook live stream because one of these tranny fanatics who's running around on the other side with the Reds said on their live stream, Richard Spencer got arrested. Cantwell has a warrant for his arrest. Well, it turns out Spencer didn't get arrested, and I called the PD and I said, I'm hearing that you got a warrant for my arrest. I want to comply with you. And they wouldn't tell me over the phone if I had a warrant because they couldn't confirm my identity over the phone. I'm like, well, if they can't confirm that to me over the phone that I have a warrant or not, then how the fuck are they going to tell some tranny fanatic on the street, right? So. I didn't know if I had one or not. That's the only reason I had that, and that's the only reason I thought that I might. So I just kind of laid low in my hotel or whatever, and I got that statement out there because they're trying to act like we're out here to murder people, And I'm like, well, that's obviously not the case. We're armed to the fucking teeth. If we wanted dead communists, it'd be a lot more than one that got hit by a car, So, I put out that video. He watched it, and he's like, look, I know that you're not a fucking monster or whatever, He's like, if you want me to come with you to turn yourself in, I'll do that, And I almost took him up on it because I'm genuinely afraid that, like, they're not treating this stuff honestly. You know what I'm saying? This guy, maybe you think he made a bad decision hitting the gas, But I sent you that video. Did you watch that video I sent you?
Yes.
You saw what I was talking about. They hit his car, right?
I saw what looked like one person.
One person hit his car with an object, right?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Right. So.
Yeah, one thing is just, can we just point that mic maybe just slightly, like that, that's fine.
Now, do you want me to do the gun thing for them, or do you want to wait until we all set up now?
Okay. Let's do that after.
So, are we ready?
I am rolling now.
Great.
Oh, but just to clarify, are you tape recording, like visually recording?
This is audio recording. I mean, no, my camera's recording over here, but it's not recording anything. This is the webcam on here. I'll turn it off. Hang on a second.
Okay. Thank you.
It's not doing me any favors anyway. Okay. So this thing is recording audio. That's all I have. Okay.
You're going to record this interview, but if you're only releasing it if you feel we've taken you out of context.
If well, first of all, I'm recording this. It's my intellectual property. I'll do whatever I want with it. Okay. What I want to do with it is make sure that everybody's honest. Okay. That's my intention here. I promise I won't release anything that I've got, this or the last one, until you've released yours, because I'm not trying to scoop you. All right. Put your content out, make your money, entertain your audience. If you've done me justice, then I'll just post your stuff. If I feel there is more context needed, then I will release the unedited thing. Okay.
Okay. All right. So are we ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Are those screens gonna like?
You want me to turn them down?
No. I like it. Can you maybe just take Facebook off? Is that Facebook?
Oh yeah, that might like dox somebody. You want that?
Yeah. So long as they're not going to go to sleep in the middle of the interview.
You know what? Hang on a second. Let me just change I think that one should be good. That one will run for 2 hours. I'm going to change the settings on this one real quick. Come on, fucking asshole. Sorry for the
It's nice.
It's if you listen to a couple episodes of the show, it's a catchphrase.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I'm trying to stop cursing on the air, but I've been saying fuck every other word for like a decade, so no, that's not sound power. They got like there are people who would love. It's funny. Like I could say any terrible thing about any string of racial epithets, and they're fine. And they're like, you say fuck too many times. Just say kike nigger.
Really?
Isn't it funny?
That's dark, dude. That's really dark.
Oh wait. Okay. Now when it's plugged in, then it should know it. Okay. Very good. All right. Fantastic. All right. We should be all right now.
Is the green light recording this?
What's that?
The green light?
The green
I was
light?
wondering what that was.
I have no idea what green light you're referring to.
This? What's this?
Oh, we can just.
Oh, that's your equipment. That's not mine.
Oh, okay.
What is that?
It's just the light.
Oh, sorry, I'm catching a glare from.
How's that?
That's good. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So, how do you think yesterday went?
Well, it has its ups and downs. There's no question about that. I got pepper sprayed twice in as many days. That was not fun, but I'd say it was worth it. We knew that we were going to meet a lot of resistance. The fact that nobody on our side died, I'd go ahead and call that points for us. The fact that none of our people killed anybody unjustly, I think, is a plus for us. And I think that we showed our rivals that we won't be cowed. So,
do you think you failed to show that you're nonviolent protesters, though?
I don't know that showing that we were nonviolent was the goal. We do not want to be initiators of violence, and we weren't. But I'm not particularly fond of the concept of nonviolence. I think that violence is, a thing that's supposed to be applied in a specific sort of fashion. And so nonviolence has never been my goal.
But the car that struck a protester, that's unprovoked.
That's not true, and you know that it's not true. You've seen the video, so.
I've seen a video. I
Yeah.
don't know much about it.
Oh, I understand that
Can you
you're.
describe what the video
Well,
appears to show?
okay. So the video appears to show someone striking that vehicle. As I understand it, the guy who is in custody was at the demonstration and was assaulted at the demonstration, and he was trying to get out of there when these animals attacked him again, and he saw no way to get away from them except to hit the gas. And sadly, because our rivals are a bunch of stupid animals who don't pay attention, they couldn't just get out of the way of his car, and some people got hurt, and that's unfortunate. But as I said before, I'm glad that none of our people killed anybody unjustly.
So you think it was justified?
I think it was more than justified. I can't believe the amount of restraint that our people showed out there. I think was astounding.
It was kind of shocking to see that many guns.
Yeah. Not a shot fired. If we, they're on news right now talking about this is an act of terrorism. Okay. Well, I'm terrible at estimating crowd size, and I'm not sure who was who out there at all times. But I know a lot of guys were armed. Okay. And if we went out there and we wanted to go terrorize that city, we had the capacity to do that. And the fact that we didn't shoot anybody is a goddamn miracle.
What do you think this means for the next alt-right protest?
I say it's going to be really tough to top, but we're up to the challenge.
Wait, why?
Why?
Tough to top? I mean, someone died.
I think that a lot more people are going to die before we're done here, frankly.
Why?
Why? Because people die every day, right? I mean,
Not like a heart attack, I mean violent death.
Well, people die violent deaths all the time, right? Like, this is part of the reason that we want an ethno state, right? So, like, the blacks are killing each other in staggering numbers from coast to coast. We don't really want to have a part of that anymore. And so, the fact that they resist us when we say, hey, we want a homeland, is not shocking to me, all right? These people want violence, and the right is just meeting market demand.
How did you feel about the protest being shut down in Emancipation Park?
Unsurprised.
Why?
Because they set us up. The whole entire point of the thing was for us to get hurt and then chased out. There's the whole entire point of it. Well, if you look at what happened, Jason applied for that permit like months ago, all right? And the whole entire point was we were supposed to have that park all to ourselves. We were supposed to be able to bring our vehicles in there, and instead they gave us a little corner of the park. They filled the streets with our enemies. They didn't let us bring our cars there, so we had to walk through this gauntlet of pepper spray and rocks to get to the park. So they set us up so that we would get attacked. Sure enough, we did. And before the first speaker was allowed to say a word, they shut it down because they didn't like losing in court. We beat them. They were wrong. Everybody knew it. The ACLU is not exactly our best friends. They took up our case. They won. We were supposed to get to the park, and they were like, you know what? We're just going to act like you don't have a permit. Because you got a Jew mayor and a nigger lieutenant mayor, or whatever the underling is, right? And they decide that they're going to fuck us over anyway.
Why do you think they set you up?
Because we were in a kill box. The entire point of that thing was that we organized this thing so that there was going to be no violence. And they changed it to make certain that there would be.
Meaning police in the city.
The city, yes. The
So
city
why
ordered
would
the.
police
I honestly, like other people will. I don't want to get on the cops' case. Okay, they follow orders. That's their function, and I don't like the orders that they had to follow. But it's not them that I got a problem with. It's whoever's handing down the orders to them. All right. They knew what they were doing. There was no way that anybody, the police who were in charge of that thing, whoever set that thing up, knew that they were creating a violent conflict. They knew it. They did it on purpose, and
Why? What was their intention?
because they want to see the Nazis get their ass kicked, which seems to be like a popular meme now, right? Ever since Spencer got punched in D.C., now it's cool to punch Nazis or whatever, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a Nazi or not. If you realize that there's differences between racial groups, if you think that maybe white people are not responsible for all the world's problems, well, now it's cool to kick your ass and mace you and threaten your life. And it's not even like illegal. Jason Kessler got attacked today, and they caught the guy who did it and they let him go. He didn't get charged. You know.
Why do you think the city would not want you to just like have your little protest and see you go home?
Because they're our enemies and we're theirs.
Why?
Because they're leftists and we're not.
Okay, but can you elaborate more on that? Like,
Do you want me to go through the left and right today?
No, I mean more like, why do you think the government would want to prevent you from speaking? Why wouldn't they want to just be like, yeah, whatever, like have your little fun? But like,
Because if people hear our ideas, they'll know that we're the good guys.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why do you say that?
Because we're trying to reduce the amount of crime and violence in our society, and these people are not, right? So like if they're promoting degeneracy and all manner of trouble, okay, and we're like, I don't know, maybe we should return to some more traditional values and have a homeland full of white people who aren't trying to kill each other every day, and they're like, you're evil for wanting your peaceful society. So that's basically my impression of it anyway.
You think your ideas are compelling enough that if people heard them, they would be convinced?
I'm certain that I know that many people would not, but enough would be convinced that anybody who's listening to reason would be convinced if they heard enough of what we had to say.
And you think the city would think people... And you think the city thinks people would be convinced too, and that's why they want to...
Let me put it more bluntly. The Jews don't want us to be heard, okay? And the city is run by Jews, like everything else. So the Jews don't want us to be heard because we will expose their lies, and then people will understand that the reason Jews get kicked out of every country they come into is because they ruin things.
Is the entire city government Jewish?
No, the entire city government is not Jewish, but we talked about this already, that is not... It's amazing to me. It seems to me like if you're talking to people in the course of discussing politics, the idea that you would be incapable of understanding demographic trends really, I don't understand how that's possible. The mayor's a Jew, right? And he's got a black lieutenant mayor, or whatever the title of the underling is, right? And, of course, you turn on your television sets, the Jews run the television sets, they're informing everybody's ideas, right? So that's what I mean when they're run by Jews.
Activists on the other side, those who oppose you, say that the mayor actually allowed this to happen, allowed tensions to get whipped up by dragging out the issue of the Lee statue for so long. They really have the opposite opinion.
Okay, so the communists are like, oh, we didn't get our way fast enough, which is why there was violence in the street. I'm not surprised by that.
Well, but they think you did the violence.
Of course, because they define our ideas as violence, right? They say, what Richard Spencer says is violence, right? So they're literally, this is why they're screaming about safe spaces on college campuses. They define our political ideas as violence, and then that is, in their minds, justification for them to physically attack us in the streets.
Haven't you called for violence yourself?
Yeah, after I'm watching these people smash people's skulls open with bike locks a few times, yeah, I start calling for violence after that.
Can you explain in what terms you do call for political violence?
I call for defensive force, okay? Now, the fact of the matter is, all politics is violence. Governments exist as an excuse for initiatory force, okay? That's what governments are. It's the only reason that they exist. That is, this defining line between the state and you is that they can initiate violence against people legally and you can't. That's the defining line between us and the state. I'm sorry. Let me just stop that.
I'm just going to change out a link. It'll take a few seconds.
I apologize. I muted that.
No worries. He's changing the lens. So this is cotton candy vape stuff?
Yep.
Tracy, how's your frame?
It's fine. I moved it a little bit.
Okay.
Just because I moved.
Yeah. Just make sure he's not blocking too much of it.
No.
Okay. Cool.
Are we set?
Yeah, great.
Sorry about that. So, you had asked me when I call for violence. anytime we're talking about politics, we're talking about violence. We're talking about how we're going to organize violence in our society, and we're going to do that. In democratic societies, we decide how the violence is exercised by popular vote. Right? We decide this guy's going to be in charge, and he's going to decide who the cops point their guns at this week. Okay, so that's what politics is. And that is something that I really wish everybody sort of understood, because maybe they'd be a little bit more careful with their voting, because nobody thinks of that as violence. And that's something that really scares me. So, if we're talking about private sector acts of criminal violence, that's a different story, right? Or we're talking about legal use of defensive force. This is violence, but it's a different category, right? So, I say, I was at the UVA march at night, okay? And we surrounded these idiots who were not supposed to be there. The police were supposed to clear them out. And those idiots did not want to obey the police's orders and decided that they were going to be outmanned and outnumbered. And I think they wanted to martyr themselves, frankly, because after hundreds of white nationalists surrounded them with torches, they began to hit people and mace people. And so after they began striking people, there's my Facebook profile cover picture right now is a picture of me macing a guy in the face. And immediately after I did that, I jumped on top of another guy. And then I knocked another guy down, and then I tackled some woman with an expandable baton. And in each of those cases, I was acting in defense of myself and others. And so that is a scenario where, yes, I would call for violence, because these people are attacking us. And the fact that we outnumber them is irrelevant. The reason it matters that we outnumber them is because we're capable of stopping the threat, right? So I call for violence in defense of person and property. If the law forbids us from defending ourselves, then I will call for what has now become a criminal act of violence, because I believe that the right to self-defense precedes governments. And if governments ban your self-defense, then they are acting illegitimately, and disobeying their orders is a righteous thing to do.
So how do you want the next alt-right rally to go?
I hope that what happens next time is the powers that be take note of the chaos that happened in Charlottesville and try to avoid it by acting in a manner similar to how the police in Pikeville, Kentucky did. That is to say, to actually try to exercise some crowd control instead of purposely creating a violent conflict like they did in Charlottesville.
What kind of organization from your own group and leaders?
I feel as though there's a lack of organizational skill in the alt-right. It's an emerging movement. Some of these people have been involved in various levels of political activity, campaigns and stuff like that. I don't think that they were ready for what they're getting themselves involved in. I'm hoping that they learn some lessons from this and learn to stop trusting people, because they have to start acting as though they're dealing with intelligence agencies. From my guys, I would hope that they would just take that into greater consideration, that, plan on getting screwed over every step of the way and organize your plans that way. I don't feel as though they did that this time, at least not all of them, right? And be prepared for the worst, And I think to a large extent they already were, but you can never be too prepared for the type of resistance that we're meeting, right?
So would your ideal alt-right rally be completely without violence?
Ideally, yes. I don't think that that's realistic. So I don't really. I want to prepare for violence at all times, and if I've prepared for violence and it's a complete waste of resources, then so be it.
So, what do you think you would have to do to get towards a zero violence rally?
We'd have to physically remove all the Democrats.
Okay, but on your side.
On my side?
Yeah.
It's impossible for my side to avoid the violence. They're the ones attacking us, right? So we can't have a non-violent rally when people are doing violence to us. That's impossible.
Does it benefit you anyway, PR-wise, when you're being attacked by your enemies physically?
If we're doing it right, every piece of publicity serves our benefit.
How would this do that?
But the point is to capitalize on you have to turn everything to your advantage. Okay, that is how you have to operate in this environment. So if they attack us and we get our asses kicked, we have to go out and make ourselves look like the victims. If they attack us and we beat the shit out of them, we have to make ourselves look like warriors, right? If we win in court, we have to say how law-abiding we were. If they defy us in court, we have to say that the government is unjust and we are prepared to defy them. Right? It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what the coverage is. It doesn't matter who attacks us or what the outcome of the conflict is. We have to turn everything to our benefit.
I mean, I think that's a classic organizing principle for all activist groups.
Exactly.
But do you feel that you're using the tactics of the left?
Yes.
Can you explain how so?
It's a propaganda war, right? So we have to always... We have to control the narrative, all right? And so the left, if anybody who's watching the television today and yesterday is watching them like Donald Trump goes out there and says, I condemn all hate, bigotry, and violence. And they say, Donald Trump didn't specifically condemn Richard Spencer, white nationalism, white supremacy, etc. But if Donald Trump came out there and he said, I condemn David Duke, Richard Spencer, and Christopher Cantwell, they would be saying, Donald Trump is amplifying their names. He's giving them press. Why is he doing that? Right? There's nothing that he could say that would be treated justly by the Jewish media. And so we have to learn from that. We have to say, however we talk about, and I don't mean to lie, okay, but I do mean to talk about things in a manner that serves our purposes. And so, like I said, whatever it is, you just have to put your spin on it, right? And that is a tactic of the left, and the left does that all the time, but that is the rules of engagement, right? And this is what I was saying in D.C. These people operate by the rules of warfare and espionage, and if we operate by the rules of civil discourse, then we will lose 100% of the time. We're trying to have an honest conversation with people who are foundationally dishonest, and it's completely ridiculous to imagine that would turn out in our favor, right?
The Daily Stormer took President Trump's comments as a win, that he condemned all violence, not just white supremacists.
Of course, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. When Donald Trump comes out and condemns all hate, bigotry, and violence, then we have to say, Donald Trump understands that we were attacked, right? And if Donald Trump came out and said, I hate the Daily Stormer, then Andrew Anglin would have to publish a piece saying, I understand, Mr. President, you had to do it. You know what I'm saying?
No, actually. What do you mean?
What I mean is, no matter what happens, you have to turn it to your advantage. So if Donald Trump came out today and said Christopher Cantwell of the Radical Agenda is the worst person who ever lived, then what I would have to do is, I'd have to meme that until the end of time, right? I'd have to turn it into... I'd make it part of the introduction music to the Radical Agenda, right? It doesn't matter what happens. You have to make it good for you. That is the war that we are engaged in. That is information warfare.
Can you talk a little bit more about why you think the car crash was justified? It looked, in the video you showed me, which I don't know if it's true, if it's real, if it's authentic, it looked like one person hit the car with a baseball bat. How could that justify hitting, 19 people?
Well, okay, so the problem is not who's in front of this guy's car when he has to escape, right? Is this guy obligated to get his skull smashed open with a baseball bat? Because it was his taillight, and then he hit the gas, right? So if you've got a bunch of people who have already attacked you, who have been using, you see the picture of the guy with the blowtorch? He's got the fire. These people are attacking people, throwing rocks, using pepper spray, expandable batons. They've got weapons. And one of them, he was already assaulted in the park. He was trying to escape this scene, and then someone with a club attacked his car. And so he could sit there and wait to see if somebody cracked his skull open. He could sit there and wait to see if that was what happened, with hundreds of communist agitators surrounding his car. He could have done that if he felt like it. I don't think I particularly feel anxious to stay in that situation. I'd be surprised to find out the guy didn't have a gun. It's a good thing he didn't open fire on those people, right?
Well, I was actually very, very close to the accident when it happened.
It wasn't an accident.
Right.
He was attacked, and he had to escape. And the fact that there are other people around him, his life is more important than theirs at the end of the day. So if these people want to be out in the streets and be communist agitators and be assaulting people because they seek virtue, justice, and the survival of their race and nation, and their lives, all of their lives, every single one of the people who is out there is less valuable than the guy who was in that car.
To him.
To me.
To you. Why?
Because he was not the aggressor. He's not the criminal animal running around attacking people in the street.
Well, as I was saying, I had crossed that intersection just minutes before the car went through. Everyone around me was peaceful people.
No, they weren't peaceful people. No, not everybody around you was peaceful people. You saw the video where somebody attacked his car. The fact that nobody beat the shit out of you down there is nice. I'm happy that you're not harmed. You know what I'm saying? But you know as well as I do that these people were not peaceful.
I mean,
at the very least, you know that they weren't going out of their way to counter-signal their criminal friends, right? So I'm walking down that thing, and some asshole maces me out of nowhere. I'm just walking to the rally, and some asshole pepper sprays me. Do you think that one of those other fucking assholes who was so peaceful went and stopped their friend? No, not a chance. They were like, yeah, good, you got him. Stay right there. We're not going to say anything. They're at best accomplices. All of them.
All right. Well, what's next for you?
Tough to say. I exchanged a few messages with Kessler earlier today. I heard that he got attacked again, and nobody did anything about it again. So I said, look...
The police did come. The police came.
Oh, the police came, yeah. The police came, and then after they allowed the guy to assault him, then they took him away before he got to have his press conference, and then they let the guy go who assaulted him. So that's what the police did today.
Okay, but what's next for you?
What's next for me is I await to hear from other people how best I can help the cause.
Well, I mean, how do you think you could?
Well, it might be just to have a bunch of interviews with a bunch of people who were there. It might be to go over to Kentucky, where I'm hearing that they're going to accelerate the removal of a statue. So, I thought it was a good suggestion for the police spokesperson at the press conference the other day when he said, we want the outsiders to leave so this city can heal. And I took him up on that suggestion and I left. I am now, as you're aware, in a neighboring state to where we just were. If I was under the impression that the best thing I could do for the cause is to go back to Charlottesville, Virginia and risk life, limb, and liberty once again, then I would. I'm not under the impression that that's the best thing I can do, so right now I'm waiting. I also am considering maybe I should go to Florida. There's some people that I know down there who I might want to see and I might want to produce some media with. Or maybe I just go back home to New Hampshire. Maybe I find out that there really is a warrant out for my arrest and then I got to go back deal with a legal problem in Virginia. I don't know.
Okay. Tracy, is there anything you think I've missed?
Can you ask, I know that you just answered this question, but can you ask explicitly sort of like why we're here?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I just realized that actually, when you're saying. So, where are we and why are we here?
We are just outside of Virginia. We are on the Virginia-North Carolina border. And I am here because the police spokesperson after the Charlottesville riot said that they wanted the outsiders to leave so that their city could heal. And I thought that that was a really good suggestion, so I left.
And we're the only ones who know where you are?
Yes.
Why?
Because I don't want to tell anybody where I am, least of all you, frankly, but I want you to help me tell my story, so I let you know.
But why would you not want anyone else to know?
Because people are leaking information, right?
And you think it could get to left-wing activists?
There are people, those people will kill me if they get the chance to do it. There's no doubt in my mind about it. So I operate with a degree of secrecy that is, shall we say, uncommon amongst the general populace.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think you're paranoid?
I don't think you're paranoid if they're really out to get you. I mean, I've got screen caps that are death threats in my comments today. It's not unusual either.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think is important to ask or generally goes unasked?
I appreciate you asking that, by the way, too, because it shows me that you're trying to put things in context, and I appreciate it. Off the top of my head, no, I don't think so. I mean, I would say you'll notice when I get angry, And I think that that's a righteous anger. But I feel it's unjust that we are categorized as a hate group or whatever. What we're out here to do is not to hate people. What we're out here to do is protect our own. And since people make that impossible, we get angry. Calling us a hateful movement of people who want to, hurt other people is inaccurate. It's a lie. It's a smear against us done by dishonest people. If we could be left in peace by ourselves, if we could have our way of life, if we could, have our own nation, then we would not be in conflict with anybody else. No, we would have our conflicts within, right? But we would resolve them civilly. The problem that we're dealing with now is that there are elements within our society who want to destroy our way of life. And we have to defend that. And since it's a violent conflict, we have to get angry for our own survival.
But doesn't your ideology hold that some people aren't fully people? They're lesser?
That's not really what it is. I mean, when I get angry, I might call somebody subhuman for the kicks. But no, it is that we are our people and they are not our people. It doesn't mean they aren't people, they're just not ours, okay? We want to be able to live separately from those who are hostile to our way of life. But the people who are hostile to our way of life will not let us escape because they need us, but we don't need them.
Why do you say that?
Why do I say that they need us and we don't need them? There's a simple mathematical calculation of who's the taxpayers and who's the tax recipients.
But how could your job creators or whatever make jobs without the labor of people who are paid far less than them?
Well, if the price of labor goes up a little bit within our society, this is not the end of the world. I mean, I think that's what the Democrats are trying to constantly do with labor regulations and minimum wage. And these people are trying to push it up to $15 an hour all across the country. I think that you could have a white nation with no minimum wage, where people would make less than $15 an hour, and you'd actually have a far healthier economy than you do right now.
Why?
Why? Well, I think that minimum wage is a really bad economic policy that creates unemployment, for one. I think that what you end up doing is you end up putting blacks out of work because nobody wants to pay them $15 an hour because they're not worth it. And then you end up with more black welfare recipients, et cetera, and it just creates all these problems, right?
70% of people who get food stamps are white.
Okay, and what percentage of the people in the country are... I don't think that that's exactly accurate. I know I know the majority of people who collect food stamps are white, but I will remind you that the government does not differentiate, at least in crime statistics. I don't know about the welfare thing. At least in crime statistics, they no longer differentiate between whites and Hispanics in the United States. And on top of that, if 30% of the welfare recipients are black, it's still more than twice their representation in the population. It's demographic trends, demographic disparities. You're going to want to learn about this if you want to cover identity politics.
I understand your argument.
I don't think that you do, because every single time I bring it up, you make these assertions as if you have completely failed to understand what I said.
Well, no, we have different views of cause and effect.
Okay.
Right. You think the way society is now is the result of genetic predispositions. I think that it is because of a power structure, and people have used race to maintain power.
Do you think that's the same case in the continent of Africa? Do you think that blacks in Africa have failed to exploit that land that is so rich in natural resources because of white racism? Is that what's going on there?
I mean, we probably shouldn't. I mean, we're getting a little far afield here.
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to ask me why a bunch of times, then we're going to go into why, right? I mean, and I understand, like, it's not a good thing for your little soundbite world that we live in, okay? But this is why I do a 2-hour show 3 days a week, and I'm about to go to 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, because you want to start addressing the problems of a society, you can't do it in 15-minute news breaks in between commercials, all right? These problems are more complex, they're serious, and they are not done justice by the way the world generally operates, which is why democracies always fail. People have to be specialists to understand these things, and they have to put a great deal of thought into them, and if they don't, then they'll make poor decisions in the state.
If you were presented evidence that showed that white people and black people were equal genetically, would you accept it?
Yes, I would immediately. You show me scientific. I would thank you for it. My life would get so much easier if I could renounce racism. Yeah. So whenever you find the evidence that black people and white people are identical genetically, then I'm going to be really interested to see that. Until then, I'm going to go with the science.
I mean, that's not the science.
It is actually, So like, there's no egalitarian science. That's bullshit. And if you'd ever bothered to look at it, you'd know that. Oh yeah, well, tell me about the science that says we're all equal.
There is, I don't know.
Richard Spencer and I are not genetic equals. Come on, be serious. Peoples that evolved for thousands of years in different climatic conditions. Are you a Darwinian? Do you believe in evolution?
So you say you and Richard Spencer aren't genetic equals, but don't you want to be treated equally under the law?
I want everybody to be treated equally under the law. The whole entire point of Western civilization is that we have a rule of law, right?
But don't you want to change the law to kick out all the immigrants?
I don't want to invite people into our society that don't believe in our way of life, right? And so
what about people who are here though?
Those people don't believe in our way of life, right? So we have if we wouldn't be going through this, we wouldn't be having this conversation if there wasn't a bunch of fucking agitators invading the country, right? So that's the problem that we're dealing with, and I need to have it solved. These people will destroy our way of life if they're not stopped. Now, if you know a way for me to do that, other than removing them from a geographic territory, I'm real interested to hear it. But so far, the only solution that I've seen is we need to be separate from them. And if we can't be separate from them, then we have to fight. And I don't want to fight, I want to be separate. But if it's separatism or violence, those are our two options.
Well, I think that's all I have to ask. Is there anything else, Tracy?
No, Zach, is there anything in your mind?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, so I just want you to show us the weapons you brought.
Okay.
Let me change my lens one more time.
I'm cutting.
Yep. You want to clear it?
Yeah.
Move your chair maybe back to the... Tracy, you want to go to the other side as well?
Yeah. Sorry, Josh. Just texting me.
Should I introduce the vest into our bit here, too?
So why not?
Whatever you
Yeah,
like.
yeah. Show us all your stuff.
Hold on one second. Do we want...
Alright, so I came pretty well prepared for this thing today. I lost my other bulletproof vest. That's my level 2. But I still have my level 3 here, which, that's a pretty good one. That'll stop at 308. My AR. Kel-Tec P3AT, 380 ACP, Glock 19, 9mm. Ruger LC9, also 9mm. And there's a knife.
So do you feel safe?
No.
Where'd you leave it on?
A couple other ARs, the other AK. I actually have another AK in that bag over there. You can lose track of your fucking guns, huh? I don't know exactly how this pronounced. SCCY CPX-2 is another 9mm. I have 10-round magazine. I got a Glock 17. I got 3 Glock 17s, 2 with lasers. Ruger LCP, Taurus TCP, a couple of 22s, Savage 308s, a couple of 12 gauges.
What's your very favorite?
I'd say my Glock 19. That's my everyday carry piece. And I like it because I used to carry the Glock 17 openly, but that's a little bit bigger. And I realized I was drawing too much attention to myself having my weapon displayed, so I want to conceal. The Glock 19 is a little bit smaller, and on it I have the Crimson Trace laser, which I'll show you. This thing right here is like an extra grip on it, and this button right here as soon as I grab this, the laser comes on, and it comes down the side. And so that's my primary weapon. And I haven't had to use it yet. But I do, like I said, I'm losing track of my guns here. I have a Taurus 85, a 38 caliber revolver that I used to carry. And that one I have had to draw. When I drew it, I realized I've got 5 shots and 4 assailants. I need a higher capacity weapon. So that's how I upgraded to the Glock.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Can you show me that laser one more time?
Yep. Again, it goes on the grip, and there's that button right there, so that it's natural. Once I grab it, it turns on, and the laser comes out from the side here.
Hold on 1 sec. Let me just get a shot. And just point it around on the vest.
On the vest?
Yeah, just so I can see on the black.
Let me know when you have that shot, Zach.
Great, thanks.
Can I have you, I know that you were saying what each thing was when you were putting them on the bed, but
Yeah.
can I have you, while they're laid out, kind of go through what's what?
Yeah. This is my Glock 19, 9mm. It's a 15-round magazine, one of the chambers, 16 total. This is my AR-500, Ares AR-500, level 3 ballistic vest. This is steel. This thing will stop at 308. This is my Smith & Wesson MP15. It's a AR-15 essentially. This is a Ruger LC9. That's I want to say it's a 6-round magazine, one of the chambers, 7 shots. This is my Kel-Tank P3AT. I can't believe I don't know what pronouncing it for going right now. Yeah, this is 6 in the magazine, one of the chamber as well. There's 7 total shots. And those are those. And then, if you want, as a matter of fact, you want me to take the AK out? I got the other AK over here, but I didn't have ammo for it handy, so I see fit to have it laying around. But this is actually kind of a more badass looking weapon. I got a laser on here and stuff. That's the AK. And I got my flashlight and laser on there. So it's kind of a handy thing to have. I'm trying to find a target. Well, like I said, I didn't bring the ammo for this one, so it didn't do me very much use to take it out of the bag other than for show.
Do you want to say when you might use which one? Like, you know, if I were looking for something quick, I would grab this, and maybe the logic behind where you place them, because I saw they're in different places on your body.
All right, so the reason I carry more than one pistol has more to do with giving somebody else a gun if need be. If I was, since I keep the Glock in a back here, it's a little bit harder to reach. If I was in a real hurry, I keep the P3AT right here, and so it's a little bit easier for me to get at than the Glock. So if I was in a real hurry, you know, this is a little easier to get at. If I know that there's a threat and I'm going to go duck behind somewhere, you know, then the Glock's going to come out. This is in my ankle holster. It is obviously a pain in the neck to get at. This is something's really going bad. I'm going to go behind a dumpster. I'm going to say, here, safety's off, and give it to somebody. Is primarily the idea behind that. And the knife, you know, it's a last resort. My motto is, the winner of a knife fight gets to go to hospital. So I don't think of these as particularly good weapons, but if I needed to use it, I would. It's genuinely, I carry it more as a cutting tool than as a weapon. The AR, well, by the time you see me reaching for this thing, things have gotten really fucking bad. Let's just put it that way.
Do you mind flicking that knife open one more time?
Yeah, sure.
Hold on, sorry, that was tricky. And one last time. Great.
I've heard soldiers say, American soldiers say they like the AK better than the AR.
Well, I don't have military training. Everything I've done with the gun, I've done at the range. I like the AR because it's lighter than the AK, and I like the safety on it a lot more importantly. Before I take this thing off safety, let me unload it.
Oh, God, please.
So, I don't know how well you can see this here, but this is the safety on the AR-15, and you can see it goes up like this, okay? And it's a lot easier, I'm trying to, it's more fluid when I'm not trying to show you on the camera, right? But that's a lot easier to do, put it back on safe, than it is to do with the, AK, because this thing, and if you're not careful, I've bitten my finger on this thing a whole bunch of times. I hear there's a modification for it, but I don't like this, and I think that if I was more of a gunsmith, I might try to alter this, because I really hate the safety on the AK. The nice thing about the AK, my understanding of it anyway, with the AR, they say the AR is very reliable as long as you keep it clean. And with the AK, they just say the AK is very reliable. There's videos on YouTube of guys doing torture tests on AKs, and I saw one guy took his knife and he opened the gun up and he's slathering fruitcake in there with his knife. He had to try to cycle it a few times, but after a little while, even covered in fruitcake and goo and all manner of crap, he was able to get this thing to cycle over and over again. My understanding of it is you're not going to do that with an AR. Now, I wouldn't do that to my weapons to find out, but the AK is generally considered about the most reliable combat rifle that's out there, and so I can see why people would have a preference for it. And now I don't know the exact weight off the top of my head, but this thing is heavier than the AR, and the ammunition is a lot heavier. Again, I don't have it here, but the AR round is kind of small. You only got 22 in there, so you got a lot of powder behind it, right? So this is a penetrating, traveling projectile. The AK is a 7.62 It's a far larger projectile. Put a bigger hole in somebody, and so that's nice unless you have to run around a war zone carrying all that crap, in which case the AR-15 makes a fine weapon.
What do you travel with your weights, too?
Yeah, I keep these things with me. Make sure I put them on a decent weight so I don't look like a complete pussy. Hang on a second. But these are adjustable, so I can turn them to whatever weight I want, anywhere between 5. I think 5 is the lowest, right? I don't know.
Is that Bowflex?
Yeah. Yeah. 5 pounds is the lowest. I can put it up to 52.5. These ones. I'll just put it 30. Do my curls or military presses or whatever. When I'm at home, I have my slant bench that I'll use for this, but the hotels are not particularly conducive to that. A lot of times they have the fitness center, but when my face is all over the news, I don't always want to be around other people. Because not everybody likes me, right? So I carry those with me when I travel. I have in my trunk, I have my resistance bands that I can do. That's just maintenance stuff, I have a gym membership, I'll go to the gym. And I probably shouldn't talk about that or I'm going to end up like Richard Spencer.
Do you ever chill out with a little Pilates?
No, I go there and I do weights and I do the elliptical. I don't even know what Pilates are, actually. I don't even know what it is.
You have to drive everywhere, huh?
Yeah. In theory, I haven't tried to get on an airplane since 2004. I would not be surprised to find out that I'm on some kind of list that makes that very difficult. But but I don't much care to anyway. You see, I got all this gear and shit. And by the way, I love driving. You know, I have a decent, comfortable, respectable vehicle, and I have satellite radio in it, and I love listening to talk radio and audiobooks. So, like, for me to get in the car and I'll drive from New Hampshire to Florida in a couple of days, and I'll just love doing it. So yeah, I have this philosophy of like, why plan when you just overpack, you know? So yeah, I drive everywhere. I've got after this trip, I have 2 people coming to move in with me who are going to join the production team for Radical Agenda. So then I'll have people who are more organized helping me out, so that I can just fill my head up with information and be informative and entertaining for my audience, and other people can deal with the mundane for me, because I'm terrible at that.
Did you show us your setup?
Yeah, will you show us your setup?
Yeah, of course, yeah, by all means.
And like, you have more gear than a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is a cheap garbage microphone. I had a better one, a PV. I forget what the model number was. That broke on me pretty recently. I have a Electro Voice R320 in my studio at home, but this will have to make do because I'm on the road. I have my Yamaha MG102C mixer. I got 2 laptops, a Samsung and an Asus. This is the Lexicon Alpha. Use this as my sound input for the recording and broadcast machine. On the Asus, I'll pull up news stories for me to read or whatever. And I also will use Skype in my call-in system to take calls from the audience on the air. And that's pretty much the setup. I mean, your audio feeds come in here, and they come out to here. Use this one for broadcasting. I use a program called XSplit to broadcast to whichever platforms I'm not presently banned from. I used to broadcast to YouTube, and they sadly have very vague hate speech laws. I'd comply with, not laws, but rules. I'd be very happy to comply with Google's hate speech policies when I publish to their platforms, if they would be so kind as to tell me what they are, but they have to remain purposely vague so that they can shut down everyone they disagree with. Right now I stream to Ustream and sometimes to Facebook, but I have to delete the videos off of Facebook afterwards because Facebook has the most obnoxious hate speech policy in the history of that obnoxious phrase.
Do you want to get some cutaways?
Yeah,
If
I'll get some cutaways.
if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You like fruit? No, you keep a healthy lifestyle for someone who's on the move a lot.
I try.
It's difficult.
And I didn't always, If you go look at my Facebook profile, you go look at pictures of me from 4 years ago, I'm a 260-pound alcoholic. And not because I was big and muscular. I was a mess, and so decided to, do some lifestyle changes, and it's been very rewarding.
I'm a fruitaholic.
How about it?
No, I'm just saying I haven't seen many people besides myself buy 2 pounds
Yeah,
of strawberries.
in the fridge. I got broccoli and ranch dressing and shit, and finished up those sugar snap peas the other night.
Yeah.
I could eat a bag of those.
I love those
Easy.
things. Yeah. That's one of my favorites. Broccoli's a little cheaper, and I do like it, so I'm like,
What
save a
about
buck
the
or two.
smoothie lifestyle? Have you thought about the smoothie lifestyle?
I don't know the smoothie thing.
You could do the bullet, the magic bullet.
I
with it.
I have one of those things at home, and I use that for my protein shakes. But I
Did you get the
don't.
stuff on the bed, Zach?
Yeah, I'm gonna get some more.
But I don't know. I don't mind chewing. You're gonna get all healthy and be like, yeah, chewing is too much effort. Fuck that. Get a blender.
Any other fun facts about Chris Cantwell we should know?
I mean, I'm the most interesting guy in America right now. I mean, believe it or not, I can tell you a lot of things, but I don't know how much time you got. Did you read? You said you read my hate watch profile.
I did.
Okay, so you know a lot of this stuff. I mean, I wasn't always a hateful, racist bigot. and some people find that interesting. You know, I don't particularly feel like it's a useful thing to virtue signal about because it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what I say now. People are just going to call me a terrible person because I recognize differences between racial groups, right? It was on last night. I went out with Asmodor from the Daily Storm, where they had a party at a private residence. Yeah, you know, oh yeah, we had to talk with him and a bag of Amanda. So we went on a podcast with them last night, and you know, so it was funny. I brought up to him when they were doing the interview for the SPLC. He brought up, I had Weave from the Daily Storm on a Radical Agenda one day as a guest, and I was on a regular reader of the Daily Storm at the time, and I am not used to people being edgier than I am, shall we say. And Weave comes on there, and I'm thinking that I'm really edgy because I'm like, hey, you know, maybe there's a genetic origin to the disparities between racial groups or whatever. I think that that's a really edgy thing to say. And Weave comes on my show, and I've never talked to him before, and he goes immediately into, we have to genocide all non-whites. And I was like, oh, wow, that's I'm not used to feeling uncomfortable on this show. I'm supposed to make other people uncomfortable, right? And one of the things he said to me really stuck with me, which is there's absolutely no point in trying to moderate such a message, because I am long before I would have ever even thought about uttering something that terrible sounding. People talked about me like they would talk about Weave. There is no hierarchy to being called a racist. Once you're a racist, you're a racist. It's an on or off switch. It's not a dimmer switch. It's not a voltage control on this thing. It's on or off. And, you know, he's like, well, as soon as you're going to recognize that we're not all perfect egalitarians here, you might as well just say kill them all, because that's how they're going to treat you. And that's been very influential on a Radical Agenda, frankly, because he's absolutely right. You know, for literally trying to do a genuine, honest intellectual inquiry, people are treated as genocidal lunatics in America today. And I think that that's a problem, because it prevents us from having honest conversations, and not being able to have honest conversations means we make bad political decisions, and when we make bad political decisions, lots of people die, and that's unfortunate.
But how can you live your whole life as like performance art that's commentary on the way we talk about race?
This is not my whole life, you know. Like, I mean, I have other things outside of this, right? But that's not what we're here to talk about. You know what I'm saying? You know, I date. That's sometimes difficult when you have the lifestyle that I do. But when I'm with a woman that I care about or whatever like that, we don't sit there and discuss fucking racial crime demographics or whatever, you know. You know, we do other things. We go see movies, we watch television, you know, we do normal people things. You know, my profession, you know, that's what this is for me, you know what I'm saying? It's my profession. I'm very lucky that I get to make my profession something that I get to be passionate about. But that's what it is. It's my job, you know. I don't think that somebody who mows lawns for a living, which I used to be, you know, revolves their entire life around cutting grass. You know, that's not how it is for me. I come out and I do these things, and there's camaraderie involved, and we'll talk about, you know, all different subject matter. But it's not my entire life, you know. But it's how I provide, and it's something that I don't think that like if I didn't do, I feel like if I didn't do this, or if somebody didn't do it for me, you know, then, you know, all the things that I care about outside of this would be gone. So I have to do it.
Does that make you sad?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I don't want, because I care about things, you know what I'm saying? Like, I care about my way of life. I care about my country. I care about, you know, my people, you know. And, like, to see that they're under attack bothers me. What racial group in America today can you speak ill of as a racial group but white people? You just can't do that and like get away with it. And you could say the worst things in the world about white people, and it's completely okay, you know. And you know, if you're one of these people who really thinks that we should live in like a racially integrated society, then you might want to start going after the people who are attacking us. You know, I didn't want to do this. You know.
Why not?
I think you're aware. You know what I'm saying? Somebody. You know, the Black Lives Matter demonstrations are going on. These guys are burning cities to the ground because they're in support of violent criminals. And somebody tries to do an honest intellectual inquiry to look into race and IQ. Somebody calls that guy a racist, which in my mind at the time is a terrible thing to say to a person. That's a terrible thing to say to a person, to call them a racist, in my opinion, when this happens. And I say that's a smear against an intellectual. He's trying to make a scientific inquiry here. If he said something incorrect, prove him wrong. And the only response that you get is he's a racist, and if you defend him, then you're a racist too. Well, that's not an honest discussion. You know, I want honest discussions. I want to live in a less violent, more honest world. And the people, my enemies, make that impossible. So I have to fight against them if I want to live in a more peaceful, honest world. And I don't like that. I would much prefer to be doing other things. But as long as that's going to be the situation I'm in, then I'm going to make the best of it, right? And I try to enjoy myself, and I succeed.
But wouldn't it be easier to just be nice to people?
If people would just be nice, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? Why did I get pepper sprayed twice in as many days? Why did somebody make a false police report against me, right? I can't just be nice to the people who are trying to destroy me, you know? That's the world that I live in. Would it be a lot easier for me to lay down and accept defeat? Would it be a lot easier for me to lay down and allow people to genocide my race from the face of the planet? Yeah, I could probably relax a lot better if I wanted to do that, but I don't.
Tell me more what you think you're protecting.
I'm protecting my race and nation. I'm protecting my way of life. I'm protecting the concept that someone's political views don't make them guilty of assault.
And heritage and all of that, is that part of it? Like your family, or?
Yeah.
So I think what is really hard for people like me to get their heads around is, why do you think that black people don't want to be part of the same American heritage that you are?
Why are they trying to destroy the history of the country by removing the statues? Right? Like if I don't deny that there are black people who do, right? You know, again, demographic trends here, okay? I never said that any of this is a reliable way of judging individuals. I don't know if I told you this part of it, but like I rebranded the Radical Agenda specifically because I had a black guest on who I saw as my superior, okay? And I was introducing him into a program called Some Garbage Podcast, and I felt stupid doing that, so I had to rebrand my show because I had to make it more respectable for my black guest, okay? This is not what I set out to do, you know? But what happens is, if you try to talk about these things honestly, they destroy your career. And the only choice that I had was to adjust my career accordingly. You know, that's the world that we live in America today. And if anybody out there thinks that we should live in a harmonious, racially integrated society, you have to go after the people who are putting people like me in these positions. You know, the guy by the name of Patty Carlton. Just got fired from his job, musical guy. And he wasn't out here macing people and kicking ass and taking names. He's just making music, you know. And people at his job found out that he's making music in support of what we're doing. And so he got fired from his job. This guy's getting married soon, you know. And he's trying to put a few bucks together so he can take care of his sick fiance, you know.
Can you tell me more about that? What do you mean?
People lose their jobs, right? Like, people try to do a good thing, you know, and they're attacked for it. They're labeled moral criminals, and they say, what did I do wrong? And nobody can tell them, right? They say, you're a racist, but I told the truth. It doesn't matter. The truth is racist. What bizarro world shit is that? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, this guy's trying to take care of a sick girl who he's in love with, who he's going to marry, you know. And he loses his job, you know, and it's not even like he's making a lot of money. He's just trying to fucking take care of somebody, you know?
But do you feel it's necessary that if you're ostracized as a little bit racist, you have to go full Nazi?
Well, I've told you before, I'm not a Nazi, right? I'm not a socialist.
I mean, like going so much further than questioning race and IQ. That you're
Well, the thing is, so here's the thing. Like, this is the whole point of radical agenda, right? Like, it's not radical, just extreme. When I rebranded to Radical Agenda, it was not a racially oriented program. Like I said, I rebranded it because I really respected my black guest on the prior branding. And so, what I meant by radical is taking something all the way to its ultimate logical conclusion, okay? There's no point in half-assing things, you know? I went and look, I told you before, I was fat a few years ago, right? As a fat guy who got drunk every night. And I said, well, you know what? I should probably lose a little bit of weight. So I got off the booze and I went on a low carb thing and I started walking. And I was like, okay, what do I do next? Well, now I'm going to start lifting weights. And then I'm going to start taking dietary supplements. And now I'm going to have a gym membership. And now I'm going to go go do something all the way. Everything you do, be a fanatic about it, right? If you're a locksmith, be a fanatic about being a locksmith. You know what I mean? Just take something all the way through its ultimate logical conclusion. And that's why I felt about libertarianism. I said the non-aggression principle is an objective moral premise that people can organize their lives around and can reduce the amount of violence in the world, right? That's why I branded the Radical Agenda what I branded it. So if we're going to talk about race, and people are going to say, things that are untrue about race, well, let's try to understand what the truth about it is. So if somebody's going to tell me I'm taking the truth too far, then what the hell is the point of what is the point of having cognitive function?
One second.
So you may have to just go.
Yeah, we can go.
So through the alt-right, you've remade your entire life and your body.
Well, the alt-right, insofar as the alt-right, in contrast to libertarianism, sadly, I feel like the alt-right, if you look at it, a lot of people came over to it from libertarianism, okay? And that's because the libertarian movement has been hijacked by communists. They are people who use they use a perverted version of a well thought out political philosophy to justify their own failures. And that is a smear against men like Murray Rothbard and Hans Hermann Hoppe. And it really fucking bothers me. The alt-right, I have disagreements with people inside of it because it's an identitarian movement. We're not necessarily coming together around ideas, we're coming together around identity. And so that takes a little bit of getting used to, but there's a masculine competitive component to it which says be better, If you're gonna get into race, you do not want to be, as people try to smear us, as like people say about racists that, well, we have nothing to be proud of for ourselves, and so we try to take pride in our race because that's the only place that we can find some pride. And that exists. And I find it despicable because I believe in meritocracy, genuinely. And so when I see that, I discourage it vehemently, and other people in the alt-right do as well, which means, go be better. Go educate yourself. Go read a book. Go to the gym. Be more physically fit. Stop drinking yourself to death, stupid. Whereas in libertarianism, it has become, and and I don't mean libertarianism, the actual philosophy, but the libertarian movement today is full of losers and degenerates who say, well, the problem with my drug addiction is that drugs are illegal. No, it's a problem that you're a drug addict, asshole, and the fact that public policy is making your bad behavior illegal, doesn't give you an excuse to be a piece of shit. They champion leftist social causes, homosexuals and transgenders and all this stuff, and that has absolutely nothing to do with libertarianism, which is a philosophy of discrimination. That you if your lifestyle is hostile to the way of to the norms of your society, then you will not make money, and then you will be corrected through forces of the market, right? They are products of the welfare state that they rail against, and so discovering the alt-right, I think, is a complement to libertarianism, and I don't think that the two are frankly completely irreconcilable. That's sort of the niche I found myself in. There's we talked when we were at the park the other day about like trade and stuff, right? There's a lot of isolationism in the alt-right, and I'm a guy who genuinely believes that if goods do not cross borders, armies will. So, it's good to have good relations with your neighbors, and that's usually facilitated by trade.
Despite those disagreements, you like the focus on bettering yourself.
I like to focus on bettering oneself and one's people, right? Like we always want to be improving, right? Like that to me is inspiring, right? We want to be brave, we want to be smart, we want to be good looking, we want to be attractive, we want, to be desirable, Whereas it seems to me that most of Western civilization today is given into Marxist egalitarian ideas that trying to be better than someone else is wicked, And I'm like, that's bullshit. Be better, compete or lose, That's my attitude, and that's a very libertarian attitude, And that is prevalent in the alt-right in a way that it is sadly not in the libertarian movement of modern day. And that's sad, because the libertarian movement should have that attitude. That is the attitude of the philosophers who created it.
So, despite becoming an outcast for being racist, are you happier than you were 2 years ago?
Happier, maybe not, but I feel more fulfilled, if that makes sense. Like I feel, I posted to Facebook today. I said, I've never been more hated or more proud of myself, okay? And I'm not a religious guy, but I believe that there are excerpts of the Bible which say something to the effect of, like, of course they hate you, you're doing the right thing, right? And this does not seem to be a new phenomenon, Truth is treason in the empire of lies, I'm not surprised that I live in a corrupted society and I rail against the corruption, and that society rebels against me, And that doesn't always make me happy. I mean, I'm angry a lot more frequently than most well-adjusted people. I, find myself in tears more often than a man my age probably should. But I find more meaning and purpose in it, and so I take solace in that.
Zach, just because our camera stopped for a moment, can I just have you get the reversal? I thought that because
the last 2 questions, maybe.
The last 2 and about if it makes you emotional. So it was, does it make you emotional? Are you happier? And I'm forgetting the one before that.
And because it's TV, you don't actually need to answer.
Oh, okay.
This is a magic of TV thing.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, just hold on 1 second. Tracy, can you close the lid of that Pelican case?
Good enough?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
So, despite becoming a social outcast for being racist, are you happier than you were 2 years ago?
Hold on one second. Tracy, are you rolling?
No, I'm getting you. You're getting her.
I know, but you need her audio.
Yes.
All right, one more time.
Okay. Despite becoming a social outcast for being racist, are you happier than you were 2 years ago?
Tracy.
What was,
Do I get emotional, something that thing?
yeah, but what
Or does
was
it make you sad, I think, musically?
The question was, does this make you sad?
Does it make you sad that you...
I'll try not to make you laugh. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Does it make you sad that you've become a social pariah? I mean, I would be sad. And what was the last one, Tracy?
Excuse me?
What was the last one?
You asked about the alt-right versus libertarian.
Oh, right. Okay. And so what you like more about the alt-right is that it is about bettering yourself.
And now for the other awkward part. Can you just talk and I'm going to get you listening?
Actually tell me things, though. Like, what was did you do sports as a kid?
I did. Let me see. When I did soccer when I was too young to remember. Later got into baseball. When I got into junior high school, I took wrestling and football. And then I got into smoking pot, and I didn't want to do anything at all.
Yeah.
And then I dropped out of high school and went to college early, where I took karate. And I don't know, about the most athletic activity I got into after that was bar fights, I guess, you know. But yeah, I did a lot. I did some, you know, sports when I was a kid, and enjoyed particularly the combat training. And got into, you know, computers. I worked in a data center for a few years. That's probably like if you will, the height of my career. I was working at a data center in Brooklyn. I was managing a couple thousand different servers for major corporations that you would recognize the names of, but we won't say here today. And ended up leaving that job because I was about to have a baby with a Dominican gal, and that didn't work out, shall we say. And I ended up coming back to New York, but not going back to that job. And then are we still doing this, or do you have enough listening?
That's great.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Are there any other shots that you missed, Zach, that you
Just
want
going to get a couple more of these.
Yeah, that thing was really good. Man, y'all are pretty bad at me when we got in that van. Y'all were pretty heated. Did I back down though? Did I not handle that well?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't think you fucking handled that well at all.
Why not?
That van was there to rescue fucking people
Yeah.
who were combat veterans, okay? And you got in there, you were fucking wrong. You shouldn't have done it.
People got to speak though.
You were here to get fucking footage. We could have spoken
Can
to you.
we
We could have
just- wait,
spoken.
wait.
Hang on a second. Don't cut me off. You asked me a question, now I'm going to answer you, okay? There was a fucking war zone, asshole, okay? And we were in danger, and you left our fucking guys on the streets so we could talk to you. We could have talked to you any fucking time. You were wrong to do it.
They didn't fill in the back. They should have filled in better.
You should not have gone in our fucking van. It was the wrong thing for you to do. You put people in fucking danger, and I'm pissed at you for doing it.
That was not my intent.
I understand that that's not your intention, but what you're here to do is advance your fucking career, and you're willing to fucking put people's lives in danger to do it.
Don't you believe in something? Right? Can't you allow me to believe in something as well?
I don't think you're out here chasing your beliefs, okay? And if you were, it's not like you couldn't get the fucking story some other time, okay? We're out there, guys are getting fucking maced and having their fucking heads cracked open, okay?
Don't you want someone to document it?
Yeah, and what did you get anything that you couldn't have got? You had Asmodor telling you that the fucking Jews run the planet. Fucking congratulations,
Well,
asshole. You could have fucking told you that on the front page of the Daily Stormer. Okay? Listen to me. Honestly, look, I told you I want the fucking story told, so I'm trying to work with you, okay? But seriously, you know, there are people who are fucking leaking information to you. Those people, if I find them, I'm gonna make them fucking regret it, okay? And you're gonna be in a fucking combat zone. Take some fucking caution. You know what I'm saying? I got maced twice in as many days. Those people would fucking kill us if they had the opportunity to do it. All right? And those vans were to get people out of there safely. You were not in danger. We were. And when you take their space with a team of people and equipment, it's a problem. They should not have let you do it. Well, it worked out for you. You know, I don't know the names and stories of everybody who got left behind that day. You know, I imagine there's a couple of guys who could have gotten in that van who probably took a fucking blow or two that they didn't have to. You know, and that's more important to me than you getting your fucking story. Well, we'll see about that. You know, we'll see about that. And I can appreciate your enthusiasm. Okay, you know, like I said, if you're going to be anything, be a fanatic at it. All right, and so you know, I'll work. You know, I'm still working with you, right? But if it's going to come up in conversation, I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are on it. And my thoughts are that you were an unneeded distraction in a dangerous situation, and I hope that you really take that into consideration when you insert yourself in such things in the future, because lives are at stake.
I do. Of course, I take it seriously. Come on, dude.
You're saying, of course, I take it seriously. I just explained to you that we're trying to get combat veterans out of a war zone, and you're taking up fucking space in their escape vehicle. You know?
Yeah,
don't tell me that you take seriously what I'm telling you when you're justifying what you did. Right? You don't take it seriously. You're willing to let those men get hurt so you can advance your career. That's what you're doing. You know? And I don't think that's a fucking judicious use of resources.
Are you trying to advance your career, or do you have a cause?
I have a cause, and I need to make a career out of it in order to finance my political activity, right? I can't do one without the other. You know, that's a thing worth talking about. You know, people get this idea in their head that because they're doing something noble, they shouldn't taint it with money, and that's why they fail, you know? You have to be industrious. You have to be able to fund things. The left manages to do this by having the fucking government funnel tax money into their think tanks and shit. You know, Planned Parenthood gets $540 billion a year, $540 million a year from the plus from the United States federal government. And even if you think that abortion is the highest noble virtue that a society can chase, you know, they poured millions of dollars into trying to get Hillary Clinton elected, right? These people are they're taking over the government and funding their own political organizations with it. So I try to make a career out of my pursuits because I think that it's a despicable thing to do, and I need to fight my enemies, and I need money to do that.
I don't begrudge you for
Good. Other people do, you know. They're like, you're just in this for the money. I'm like, yeah, that's right. I became a racist podcaster because that's the best use of my talents for financial reward. You know, I'm smart, I'm funny, I'm good looking, you know, and I'm good at what I do. And people fucking try to smear me like I just got into racism because that's where all the big bucks are at, you know. You have to make money if you want to advance your political causes. And sadly, one of the tactics that we haven't managed to adopt from the left yet is getting the government to shower us with millions of dollars.
Well, that's actually, it's a discussion I often have with, say, liberals in the North. They say, people like you couldn't possibly believe it. And I'm like, no, they really do. They really would.
Yeah. I do not risk life, limb, and liberty to bullshit people.
Well, I appreciate you explaining.
I appreciate you telling the story.
Okay. I know we have our differences.
I know.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I think.
Is there anything you need to shoot that you didn't shoot?
I might just get a couple more details and then we're good.
Okay, you're gonna.
Thank you.
Do you want to unmic?
Yeah, we can. Do you mind doing that?
You're fine.
Yeah, I'll let you handle it because you're equipment.
Thank you.
No problem.
favorite fruit?
My favorite fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Kiwis.
Oh, I love kiwi.
I like kiwis.
I remember when my mom told me about kiwis. I was like 8. I had my first one.
I don't think I had a kiwi for a long time. They didn't look very appealing either, right? They don't look like something you want to eat. It's like furry and shit. And I'm like, kill that thing, take its skin off first or whatever.
We had this really good farmer's market in Atlanta, and my mom started bringing me fruit when I was a little kid, and she'd be like, "This is a pomegranate."
That was good though. Yeah.
All right.
I'm ready, Chris.
For a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm just gonna grab this light.
Yeah.
Need me to carry something? I need some.
Let me just. I can pack up.
Here, just give me that camera.
I get a shot of this too. Is this ammo?
Yeah. Ammo and extra mags.
Okay.
So, like, how many bullets?
I actually don't have a great deal of ammunition with me right now. I mean, I've got what's loaded in the weapons already, and I got a little bit extra 223. I've got 5 rounds of 38 for my revolver that's in the bag over there. Oh, I haven't even shown all the guns I have. I keep on forgetting. 2 AK mags and extra mag for the Glock.
Yeah.
But, you know, we get to a point where we're reloading. It's gotten bad, you know. Try to avoid situations where you need to use your gun, and you try real hard to avoid situations where you gotta reload them, you know.
I think so, yeah.
If I can't take it down with 16 rounds of 9mm, I shouldn't have been fucking with it in the first place, you know.
Yeah. I really don't want to be in that situation.
Ammo.
Oh, can we get the...
Oh, you want the ammo?
Yeah, I don't even need you to. Well.
Oh, okay. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Show me.
I've got 2 boxes of 223 in there for the AR. I just got 6 rounds of 38 special. I got a revolver in the bag. I forgot to show you before. A little loose 9mm and 3/8. It's like, I didn't come, as I was saying, I didn't come here expecting to have to reload my weapons. I just, I had some loose ammo through in the bag. I got a couple extra magazines for the AK. And 380 for the P3AT. This is a mag for Glock 17, the other Glock I have. You want more guns? I forgot I have them, I didn't even mention them.
Wait, hold on, don't take them out yet. We'll get you taking the.
Okay.
we gotta get
All the motions.
Yeah.
Where are they?
I'm going to get a gun. I'm going to be counting. There we go. Now we got more guns. There we go. This is my Glock 17. One of my Glock 17s. It's basically the same as a 19. It's just a little bit longer in a barrel, and it's got 2 more rounds in the magazine. This is my Taurus 38 caliber revolver, and this gun is very special to me because I've actually drawn it in self-defense before. A video on my YouTube channel titled "I Almost Killed Someone Last Night," where I was walking home and I heard some some what sounded like some damsels in distress and some angry male voices. So I went to go investigate, and I put my camera on, and they didn't want to be recording. I wasn't about to leave, so they attacked me, and I drew this pistol on them, and luckily the Keene police came before I had to pull the trigger. So that's I think that's the entirety. Let me see. Oh, got my knife, another knife. But my understanding of Virginia law, they're more hostile to knives than they are to guns there, believe it or not. So we were advised not to bring such things. And as I said before, the winner of a knife fight gets to go to the hospital. So that's not exactly what I feel like doing. Expandable baton, kind of handy, but in most scenarios, laws don't like you carrying these things because it seems like you have an intention to do something other than defend yourself. So that stayed in the bag. Some various holsters. And my little coup baton on there. I had my pepper spray, but I lost it in a melee at UVA, so I think I got another one somewhere, but it's apparently not in that bag. And I don't know. I think that you've seen most of my interesting stuff here. Chapstick.
All right. On that note.
All right. You start breaking out the chapstick. It's getting too dull for vice.
All right, well, watch tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you gonna be on tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night? Probably tomorrow night.
All right,
Yeah, we
looking
gotta
forward to
edit
it.
like hell.
Well, sounds like you guys have some work ahead of you, so get to it.
All right.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Be in touch.